the Board of Education to order. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Board Secretary on November 4, 2025 in the following manner. Posted notice on the school bulletin board at the Administration Building, transmitted to the Courier Post, Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Clerk of Cherry Hill Township. Please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Schimpf, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Braddock.
Here.
Ms. Sherfain.
Here.
Dr. Dreisen.
Here.
Mr. Greenbaum.
Here.
Ms. Manzano.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Ms. Palmer.
Here.
Ms. Stern.
Here.
Ms. Winters.
Here. Thank you so much. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Morton.
Thank you so much, Ms. Winters. Under normal occasions, we normally jump directly into our agenda, but today's a special day. Today is Veterans Day, and although we were in school today, it's a day that we absolutely recognize the service and commitment and sacrifice of those valiant, brave individuals who chosen to serve our country. There's a long line of military service in my family, and we truly, truly thank everyone for their service. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but one of our board members is a military veteran and a current reservist as well. Dr. Dreisen has served in the United States Navy and is currently in the United States Navy Reserves as well. So definitely appreciate you, sir, and thank you so much for your service. We also have some special guests with us this evening who came to grace us with their excellence in thespian performance. Today we're joined by students from High School West who are here to preview their play, the upcoming musical Elf. So I guess without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Fleischman. All right, nice shirt as well, yes.
You are doing it perfect and wonderful.
Well, I certainly hope that got you all in the festive spirit. We open next week, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, and tickets are available at cure8.com. Thank you so much for having us. But we got a dance rehearsal to get to.
Thank you so much for coming and giving us a preview. It's such a highlight of being on the board, and I can't wait to come see the show. It's going to be amazing. Now, to follow that act, we have a presentation on the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, Advanced Placement and Dynamic Learning Maps. Now, I heard that Ms. Holmgren is going to be doing this entirely with the majesty of song for us to make it wonderful. Yes? No.
Christmas songs make me cry, so. Good evening. Tonight, I'll be presenting the results from Spring 2025 New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, otherwise known as NJSLA. This presentation provides an overview of district performance in English language arts, mathematics, and science, comparing results across 23, 24, and 25 administrations. Our goal is to highlight areas of continued growth, identify opportunities for improvement, and share key instructional strategies that are guiding our next steps. Let's begin by briefly reviewing the purpose as well as the structure of the NJSLA assessments. The NJSLA assessments in ELA, mathematics, and science are required by both federal and state law for all students in grades 3 through 8, as well as high school. These assessments are designed to measure how well students are meeting the New Jersey student learning standards. Results help us identify curricular strengths and areas for improvement across schools and grade levels, ensuring equitable access to a high quality of education for all of our students here in Cherry Hill. This data informs both district and school level planning, professional development, as well as curriculum refinement. Next, we'll look more closely at the performance levels used to categorize student achievement. The English Language Arts, or ELA, and Mathematics assessment includes 5 performance levels, ranging from level 1, not meeting expectations, to level 5, exceeding expectations. Students performing at levels 4 and 5 are considered proficient, demonstrating that they are meeting or surpassing grade level standards. The science assessment includes 4 performance levels. Students performing at levels 3 and 4 are considered proficient. Tracking performance across these levels over time gives us a clear picture of progress, growth, and areas where instruction or intervention may be needed. We will now move into the ELA portion of the presentation, beginning with participation data. Here you can find the 3-year comparison of district-wide ELA performance on the NJSLA ELA for 23, 24, and 25. It shows the number of students tested and the percentage of students in each of the 5 performance levels. Please note that the number of students tested slightly declined each year from 5,490 in 23 to 5,406 in 25. There was a small increase in performance for our students in levels 1 and 2, and we maintained our percentage of students who performed within levels 4 and 5. This slide displays our ELA participation rates for NJSLA, again from 23 to 25 across grades 3 through 9. The participation rates, as you can see, are consistently high, above 97% for all grades as well as years. This strong participation ensures the data is representative and valid for analyzing student achievement trends. The data in this exhibit provides you with several data points, which include how many students were tested at each grade for all 3 years. You are also provided the breakdown of the percentage of students across the 3 years who performed within each of the 5 proficiency levels at each grade. We are always looking to see a decrease in students performing within levels 1 and 2, and an increase in students performing within levels 4 and 5. You may notice we saw this exact trend in grade 6, grade 8, and grade 9 for ELA. This slide compares the changes in ELA performance at each grade level with the state's changes over the same period. It displays for each grade 2 different metrics: the percentage in students scoring in levels 1 and 2, and the percentage of students scoring in levels 4 and 5. Cherry Hill outpaced the state in most grades, both in reducing the percentage of students in levels 1 and 2 and increasing the percentage of students in levels 4 and 5. Diving further into comparison data, here you can find the comparison of the percentage of our students scoring in levels 1 and 2 versus statewide results for each grade from 23 to 25. We consistently had a lower percentage of students in levels 1 and 2 compared to the state across all tested grades and all 3 years. Green highlighting on the slide marks every grade where Cherry Hill outperformed the state. This indicates that our students performed better than their statewide peers in minimizing the number of students who did not meet expectations in ELA. Here you will find the data for students performing within levels 3 and 4. The data show that we consistently performed better than the state in these mid to high performance levels across all tested grades and years. Again, green highlighting in level 4 indicates where Cherry Hill outperformed the state. Finally, here you can find the data for level 5 or advanced proficient. This is a ceiling performance indicator. Stability or growth here suggests the district is maintaining opportunities for accelerated student performance. Now we will move into the subgroup data for ELA. This slide presents the percentage of Cherry Hill students who fell within each of the 5 performance levels in ELA for 2023, 2024, and 2025, broken down by race and ethnicity. Our Asian students had the highest proficiency, with 76% meeting or exceeding expectations in 2025. We also saw an increase in proficiency for students of 2 or more races. Here you can view the assessment outcomes for the percentage of our students meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA for the 3 years, broken down by student subgroups. You will notice our proficiency levels are remaining steady for these subgroups. And here you will find the final subgroup data for ELA. Our multilingual learners improved from 14% proficient in 23 to 16% proficient in 2025. We'll now shift our focus from ELA to mathematics, reviewing 3 years of NJSLA results for our district, including participation, performance trends, and comparisons to the state. Over the next 2 slides, I will highlight the district participation data for mathematics. This first participation slide here provides you with the 3-year participation participation trends in percentages. This exhibit shows Cherry Hill's percentage by performance level for those 3 years I indicated earlier, 23, 24, and 25. The percentage of students in level 1 decreased from 8.5 in 23 to 7.2 in 25. Level 2 also improved, dropping from 16.5 to 14.4. Levels 4 and 5 together increased from 48.5 in 23 to 52.8 in 25. This slide details changes in math performance from 23 to 25 for each grade and high school course. It presents the percent of students in each performance level for each year with a focus on the percentage change. From 23 to 25, most grades and math courses saw fewer students in the lowest performance bands and more students achieving proficiency and above. These improvements are highlighted in green and reflect positive trends. Here you will find the percent change from 23 to 25 across grades compared to the state averages in 2 key areas. For levels 1 and 2, in almost every grade as well as year from 23 to 25, Cherry Hill had a lower percentage of students in these lowest performance levels than the state. For level 4 and 5, we saw an increase in about half of the grades and courses for the percentage of students who were considered meeting or exceeding expectations. This slide compares the percentage of our students scoring in levels 1 and 2 across grades and years compared to the state overall. In all grades and courses, Cherry Hill had a lower percentage of students in levels 1 and 2 than the state in 2025. This slide compares the percentage of students in levels 3 and 4 for Cherry Hill, again, as well as the state from 23 to 25. Green highlighting once again shows the grades where Cherry Hill outperformed the state. In almost all grades or courses, we had a higher percentage of students in level 4 than the state across 3 years. And finally, here is the data for level 5 percentage changes, which again is showing a shift in a positive direction. Here you can find the subgroup data for race and ethnicity by performance level. I would like to draw your attention to the Black and African American subgroup, who saw an increase in proficiency from 26.2% in 23 to 28.8% in 2025. This slide presents the assessment outcomes for the percentage of Cherry Hill students meeting or exceeding expectations in math for the 3 years, broken down by student subgroups. You will notice that our proficiency levels are remaining steady for these subgroups. This concludes our mathematics subgroup data. I would like to highlight the performance for our economically disadvantaged subgroup that has remained steady across the 3 years. Moving into the next section of our presentation, we will now move into the science data. A few things that I want to bring to your attention. Science is only administered to students in grades 5, 8, and 11. And the science assessment only has 4 performance levels. Those students who perform within levels 3 and 4 are considered proficient. As we did with ELA and math, we will begin with our participation data. Science participation rates are outstanding for grades 5 and 8, consistently above 96%. However, grade 11 participation has declined sharply because the science assessment is not a state or federal requirement. This slide shows our overall percentage by performance level in science. The percentage of students in level 1 decreased, which indicates improvement. And levels 3 and 4 increased by 5.1% from 23 to 25, which is again the trend we want to continue to see. This data presents the percent of students in each performance level for each year with a focus on the percent change from 23 to 25. We saw fewer students in the lowest performance bands and more students achieving proficiency or above. These improvements are highlighted in green and reflect positive trends across the district's science program. Displayed here are the percent change from 23 to 25, again across those three grades, 5, 8, and 11, with the state averages in two key areas. For level 1, in every grade and year from 23 to 25, Cherry Hill had a lower percentage of students in the lowest performance levels than the state. For levels 3 and 4, we also saw here that our students had a higher percentage of students who were proficient comparable to the state. This exhibit compares the percentage of Cherry Hill students scoring in levels 1 and 2 across grades and years compared to the state overall. In all grades and courses, Cherry Hill had a lower percentage of students in level 1 than the state across all 3 years, 23, 24, and 25. This slide compares the percentage of students in levels 3 and 4 for Cherry Hill and the state. Again, green highlighting indicating where Cherry Hill outperformed the state. In most grades, we had a higher percentage of students in levels 3 and 4 than the state across the 3-year span. We will now move into subgroup data for science. We continue to see gradual growth in science proficiency among our subgroups, with a decrease in the percentage of students in level 1 and an increase in the percentage of students performing within levels 3 and 4. I would like to highlight our Hispanic subgroup, who has made nice gains since 2023. For students performing within level 3 in this subgroup in 2023, 9.7% performed in level 3, and that increased to 16.6 in 2025. Here you can find the percentage of Cherry Hill students meeting or exceeding expectations in science, broken down by student subgroups once again. I would again here like to highlight our Hispanic subgroup, who were in total 12.4% proficient in 23 and jumped to 20.1% proficient in 2025. This concludes our subgroup data for science. Here I would like to highlight the increase in proficiency that we saw in our economically disadvantaged subgroup, as well as our students with disabilities subgroups. I will now turn the mic over to our curriculum supervisors, who will highlight the notable achievements, as well as the interventions for ELA, mathematics, and science based upon our spring 2025 NJSLA data.
Good evening. Thank you. So I want to begin by highlighting some of the achievements in English language arts in the past sitting of the NJSLA. As you'll note, students in all grade levels are at or above in all of our reading standards. This is a great achievement. In addition, students in grades 6 through 9, so our middle schools plus 9th grade, which is the last year that students sit for the NJSLA in English, those students have shown improvements in decreasing levels 1 and 2 and increasing levels 4 and 5, as Ms. Holmgren highlighted. In addition, we're pleased that more of our multilingual students are meeting the state expectations for the NJSLA.
Hi, good evening. In math at the elementary level, there's been an increase in the percentage of African American and Hispanic students meeting and exceeding the standards. At the secondary level, our students are achieving above the state average for grades 6 and 7, as well as Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. In science, there's been an increase in the percentage of students who are proficient in 9 out of our 12 elementary schools. And at all of the tested grade levels, 5th, 8th, and 11th, there's been continued growth in the percentage of students who are proficient advanced proficient.
So now for some of our interventions. For English, we continue at the elementary level to target our students who need additional support using the supports that are built into our new program, Amplify KLA and M-Class. In addition, at the secondary level, we are using our new literacy coach to help with instructional strategies daily in the classroom and also support our writing standards where we see room for growth.
And in math, at all levels, we're working to differentiate instruction so students meet and exceed the standards and providing the tiered supports that they need in both tiers 1 and in tier 2. Differentiation is working with students to make sure that we're meeting their needs where they are. At the secondary level, we're infusing the curriculum with items from the release question bank so students can familiarize themselves with the types of questions that they see on NJSLA, both in terms of content and in terms of format. Moving into science at the elementary level, we continue to foster vertical articulation. So that aren't familiar, that would be a second grade teacher working with both third grade teachers and first grade teachers to get a better understanding about the path students take in science, as well as integrating the ELA standards and their practices into the science journals that they complete during the science units. And at the secondary level, we continue to update the benchmarks. We chunk skills by band, and we're expanding the Open SciEd programs for our students. I believe that's actually the last slide. Opening the floor to questions.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Information was fantastic. Board members, I'd like to open it up for questions. Dr. Braddock.
First, as always, thank you for the data. I like seeing a lot of the green on the screen. And when I see the green, all the data makes me very happy. This might be getting a bit into the weeds, but for any grade level or any kind of have you collected any kind of data to indicate why the shifts are occurring, why some students would be going from, say, level 3 to level 4, level 4 to level 5, or in the other direction, if some students are dropping in levels, if they're going down? It's cool to see those numbers shifting, but I was wondering if you have any inclination as to why they're shifting whatsoever, aside from the obvious fact that you're putting together some very good interventions.
Okay, I'm going to take that one. So thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we are very, very intentional with our curriculum and our benchmarking to give students as many practice opportunities as possible throughout the school year prior to a testing window happening, where we use released test questions on our benchmarking to give them an opportunity to practice those questions as they would see them on a standardized test. So that's definitely going to help move those 4s and 5s. We're also starting to see a fluctuation in the number of students in our grade levels, sometimes as much as by 100 students. That's definitely going to play a role in what we're seeing in our level 1s and 2s, as well as our 4s and 5s. But with the use of our coaches, we have our literacy teacher coaches, our math coaches at the elementary level, our secondary coaches, and using our ELA secondary coach as a literacy coach going into the different disciplines to talk about how the ELA standards are assessed through those disciplines. Again, give students as much practice opportunity as possible to help them move into those 4s and 5s.
Love it. Thank you.
Other board member questions? Mr. Mayor.
So, Ms. Staff, can you go back to slide 37? I think it was 37. Thank you. Yeah. So, and this, I'll throw this out to whoever wants to handle it. On the right side, science. It's great to see that proficiency levels being met. It's increased at 9 of 12 elementaries, but what's going on at the other 3? Do we have any interest? Can we get a little information on the 3 where it's not increasing? Is that cross-referenced with any other challenges, demographic challenges or otherwise?
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, each individual school conducts root cause analysis. They're in the process of doing that and working through what those root causes are. I think, back to the original question that was asked, by Dr. Braddock, there's a variety of reasons, you know, in terms of, you know, what's making impact and also what some of the hindrances are as well. That's some of the drags. One of the things that we have communicated, you know, quite openly about is the problem or the challenges that we're facing around chronic absenteeism. And what we see is that there are different results by different schools. Generally speaking, across the district, chronic absenteeism is a major concern. I mean, definitely a major challenge for us. What we see in some of the more marginal groups where there are, I guess you consider marginalized populations, we see higher rates of that chronic absenteeism that directly correlate to achievement results, essentially. Further, when we think about, you know, I had shared, I believe at CNI meeting, I shared pre-COVID numbers to post-COVID numbers. You know, pre-COVID, we were at about 8.6 as a district with chronic absenteeism. That number has risen by 64% post-COVID. So in the 4 years after COVID, we're at about 14.6 percent of our population who are chronically absent. That means students miss 10% or more of the days. What's more problematic, and just as problematic, not just that group missed 18 days of school essentially, but the group that misses more than 12 days or 12 days or more. At the high school level, high school staff will tell you that once a student has accumulated 12 unexcused absences, that student technically is in a credit deficiency state and needs to have their credits restored. What our data has shown and what we've been able to identify, particularly this year, is that students who aren't necessarily listed as chronically absent, but have accumulated between 12 and 17 absences are lagging in their performance as well. So, you know, it's a big group for us. Just this last school year, of over 2,000 students. So we absolutely have our work cut out, and there's correlation here as well with those schools with a higher representation of children who are struggling in that regard.
Great. Well, not great, good. Great that there is, you know, you have a lens on that, and that the district is now more aggressively pursuing various methods of attacking the chronic absenteeism issue. So I appreciate that, and just want to make sure it wasn't being overlooked, which I knew it wasn't, but it's good to hear that. Thank you.
Other board members? Ms. Stern?
I have a few questions. This is one of the main areas that really stood out to me in where we're struggling is middle school, really 8th grade in algebra, middle school math, I would say. And I guess, I mean, the really significant number of students are not meeting proficiency in that band. And I think, you know, a few things. First of all, looking at root cause, I guess I'm a little trying to understand if the root cause, and that this is a question that, you know, I asked as part of our, you know, weekend memo questions. If the root cause is chronic absenteeism, I guess I don't know that we're seeing the same crossover in ELA in that band. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, you know, why there's a discrepancy in the performance on ELA but math. There's a different, there's a higher level of proficiency in ELA in that same group. So if they're absent and they're missing ELA and they're absent and they're missing math, why are they still performing better in ELA? I think that's one of my first questions.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to address that question. One of the things that I think that we were able to glean through COVID and teaching through virtual formats is that it was an entirely different experience and entirely different results. Kids who were learning using literacy skills as opposed to learning mathematics. The one conclusion I came to is that mathematics is best taught through eyeball to eyeball instruction, where teachers have an opportunity to offset errors in thinking, where students fortify those errors in thinking in terms of the way that they're solving problems, mathematical problems. So what we've seen nationwide with mathematics results following COVID is you've seen a decline. It's evidence in the National Assessment of Educational Progress results that just came out this year, last year, the year before that as well. I think math is somewhat cyclical. It's somewhat foundational, where you're building upon concepts that are taught at early ages, and that knowledge keeps extending and keeps growing and keeps building in a way that if there are foundational gaps or confusions early on, it leads to, you know, later challenges as well. So I find it difficult to compare the learning and teaching of mathematics to ELA for those reasons.
So based on that, I guess there's no doubt in my mind, and I think, you know, you and your team have articulated very clearly, chronic absenteeism is certainly has a direct impact. I guess I'm just, in terms of when we talk about like root cause, what I'm also hearing is that root cause has to do with more with foundational concepts as well with mathematics. That's another root cause impact when we look at these cohorts that are not meeting the standard. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, I think if you're, so as we begin to analyze, so there are different groups of kids annually. So you mentioned Algebra 1, for instance. We had seen in the last several years gains in Algebra 1. It's the same teachers, same curriculum, different set of students. So then you say to yourself, if it's the same teachers, we believe in our teachers do a great job, our kids are working hard, what's the rub? What's the difference? Why didn't we see the same continuation? And we have to dig a little bit deeper and dig a bit further. I gave you the rates for chronic absenteeism in the district of 14.6. I can tell you, those who were not proficient on the Algebra 1 assessment, the chronic absenteeism rate for that group was 40%. So you can begin to draw conclusions, and you can look for that population or that cohort of kids. You think about the compounding impact of year over year over year of missing excessive amounts of school. It's very difficult for even the most outstanding educators to overcome. So, we absolutely have a greater responsibility, I believe, to all cohorts of our students around bringing awareness to good attendance and helping support our families with resources and information and strategies and knowledge in that regard.
And so just as a follow-up question, because again, the kids that took the test, last year, now they're in either Algebra 1, right? The kids who really were not proficient are either in Algebra 1 or they got through Algebra 1 not proficiently. This is one of our main parts of our our goals, our district goals, and our strategic plan is, algebra proficiency, because it is so important for all of Math Foundation. So my follow-up question is, what are we doing this year with these kids? And what are we doing with the kids, seeing that we've had definitely struggles in 8th grade math? What are we doing with the 8th grade math kids this year to ensure that we have different results next year? Because it's November, right? We have the entire year ahead of us. And I think about, did we have our math coaches full time last year? I'm not, if my recollection is accurate, and it's, I can recall, times where we were without a math coach or one or two, because if I'm recalling correctly, just because, sometimes we have absent, sometimes we have teachers on leave or what have you, like, we've had a change in the supervisor. Like, there's so many factors, but ultimately we have to make sure that these kids have the skills, because we're going to keep seeing, they're going to keep experiencing this if they don't get this solid foundation.
Yeah, so I think we have to. I think sometimes we run the risk. I think we run the risk of believing that achievement or success is captured in 1 year. It's a progressive effort, and it's a progression. So if you think about this concept or idea that there may have been instructional time missed or there may be gaps or things. Our teachers do a heck of a job of providing information that's based upon the annual set of standards that children need to learn. But then there's also the concept of catching up, not Heinz ketchup, but catch up as well, right? So helping them to catch up. So you're doing two things simultaneously, right? You're providing structure to fill the gaps for annual progress that needs to be made, but also catch-up progress, as we call it. And it's a progression. You may not be able to make the catch-up progress in 1 year, but we can analyze growth, and that's why we speak to growth and we look for growth metrics to see if our children are making steady, progressive progress. You know, I've seen that work. You know, I've seen it up close and personal, particularly at the high school level. For our staff, you know, during my time at West, you know, as they continue to work with students. I can attest to the fact the longer children are in the system and with our teachers, the better off they do. And it ultimately leads to positive outcomes where our children are able to access college and career opportunities. Just as we communicated, you know, last week, 100% of our kids graduated and went on to over 100 colleges last year. So,
Final question, and maybe more of a pin. So district assessments are part of our strategic plan, right? Analyzing district assessments. And that was a question I also asked, and the answer I got was, we're just getting the data in. When can we expect a report out on that? And specifically the cohorts, when we're looking at the areas that struggle, I think math is just the standout, 8th grade algebra. That cohort that took the test in the spring of 2025, right? When will we see how those group of kids specifically are doing at this point?
So the benchmark window is just closing this week with the end of the marking period. So we should expect to see some data on how they performed on benchmarks in all of our core content areas within the next couple of weeks. And then what we will do is we have data protocols. So the CNI supervisors with the building level supervisors, as well as the coaches, and Dr. Birdie, Mr. Guy, myself, will work with the building level administration to unpack that data, to look at the standards that were assessed, how they're assessed on the standardized test, because they are very much lookalike, and then where they come up in our content again, so that the students have additional opportunities where they may have struggled in this first window to practice those skills again, because there's that spiraling of standards that occurs.
I have a follow-up question. I know that all of this information feeds into the building of the school-based goals, which flow from the strategic plan to the district goals to the school-based goals. When do you think the school-based goals for this year will be available?
Within a week, they'll be available. They are done. They're under review right now. Well, under a third or fourth review, I guess you could say, right now by myself, and they'll be imminent before, you know, they're posted.
Excellent. And that wasn't meant to be a pressure question. I was just honestly curious, because this conversation around algebra readiness, as Ms. Stern indicated, is something that we really worked on during the strategic plan conversation in CNI. We talked about during district goals. So I'm just trying to see the progression, and we'll talk about it in the committee report out. So the CNI committee got a slightly different version of the presentation, which looked a little more deeply at the school level. So I'd like to do a little bit of matching to looking at what's going on at the schools by grade, and then thinking about what the school-based goals look like and what that means for this academic year, to sort of address some of the questions Ms. Stern was asking. Other board member questions? Dr. Dreisen.
Thank you. And I think this is building on the current discussion. So first, thank you again for the presentation. I think it does a great job at highlighting a lot of the notable achievements. What I've asked this of CNI in the past, and I think I've brought it up here. Maybe this is a conversation for the board as well. It's just for me, as I try to think about my role as a board member, what would be helpful is in between the notable achievements and the intervention strategies is hearing from those with the educational expertise. Like I don't have the educational expertise. What we identify as the notable opportunities. Like Ms. Stern, for example, she just identified Algebra 1 as an issue, but I'd be curious to know what the district viewing this data is zeroing in on as the notable opportunities, because then that would help me as a board member be able to tie the intervention strategies back to, okay, we're trying to address these notable opportunities. So it's more of a process comment that we do a great job highlighting the notable achievements. It would help me to understand what we as a community are viewing as the notable opportunities.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. Yeah, so the interventions themselves that are identified, the intervention strategies, are intended to address opportunities. Maybe it's not the language isn't as explicit and clear, for everyone to understand, but the idea behind those intervention strategies is to provide intervention based upon something that's a challenge for us currently. So that I guess it's just semantics in the way that it's being titled and communicated.
I think that I appreciate the explanation of the intervention strategies. I'm just currently unable to tie the intervention strategies back to an issue, semantics aside. What is the metric that we're then, when we come back to this a year from now, that we're hoping to see achievement on based on that intervention strategy? That's what I'm just speaking for myself. I have a hard time connecting the dots. Yeah.
Your questions, Mr. Fain.
Okay, doesn't like me. I know you were maybe planning on doing a little bit more of CNI deep dive, but one thing that I was hoping that Ms. Staffen could mention that we talked about in CNI was how this data is or will be used to address individual student needs in respect to either ELA or math, or I guess science as well. Because I know we discussed that and I thought that was very helpful, what you said.
Sure. So this becomes one metric of data that schools use in order to determine, we've talked a lot about MTSS, right? The multi-tiered system of supports. It becomes one metric of data that's used to determine the needs of students. So if we see a correlation between specific standards that students may struggle with independently on this NJSLA, we go back to any student in grades K through 5, tested students in 3 through 5, and there's a correlation maybe with DIBELS data. They're looking at, performance on localized assessments. So all of those things come to play. And then we look at, NJSLA is looking at the major standards that we've taught through our curriculum. And so we're going to pinpoint those first to say, if this is a struggle, as Dr. Morton talked about the build, then, and there's multiple metrics that show that there's a continued struggle with a specific standard or skill, then we could focus on that in an MTSS type process, whether it be a tier 1, because we need to universally make sure all of the students, they might see that same struggle because it's a very new concept or standard, or it becomes a little more individualized in a tier 2 or then a tier 3 with one of our interventionists.
Thank you. And the one more, it's not so much a question as it is a talking point, I would say, for the board. And this is kind of related to what you said, Ms. Stern, and I appreciate your comment and perspective on that, because I think it's important to look at this. And I didn't actually look at that specific trend. And I'm glad you said that, because I like the way that your brain was going with that. And because when I was looking through this data, the thing that stuck out to me the most was the ELA level 5 data for grades 3, 4, and 5, because it looks as though we've pretty much trended up in 2024 and then trended back down in 2025. And these students, if I'm getting this correctly, are not COVID kids. So they were not in school during the current 6th graders would have been the COVID kindergarteners. And so a lot of these students, although there is obviously residual years, COVID didn't just happen in a few months. We all know that. There was residual years, but that was an area of concern for me, was the ELA data for those grades specifically. So I don't really have a question, as more of just the talking point for the board itself. And like you were saying, Dr. Dreisen, I think it's important for us moving forward over the next year to make sure that we're not ignoring that data. So I'm like far away, that we're not ignoring that data, because it does look like it's now trending back down in those grade levels. And after implementing a new curriculum, I want to ensure that we're paying attention to that as well, just as much as we are the algebra kids, because these students should not have been as heavily affected by the COVID years as the ones that are in the higher grades. And I'm also just kind of skimming through the data for absenteeism on the dashboard. I think it would be helpful for us to look at that in correlation to these grades, because it seems like the percentage of absenteeism in those grades is not good, but from just a very quick review, looks like there's not a huge shift from year to year in those grade levels. So I think that it would be helpful for us moving forward, especially when we're discussing different positions like we are tonight, on adding and trying to address some of the absenteeism concerns. Maybe we can pull some data and see how that correlates year to year with what our absenteeism from 23 to 24, 25 in those grade areas. And obviously it'll be skewed because you'll have to take 23's third graders, look at 24's fourth graders, and 25's. It's not an easy linear progression there, but I think maybe that would be helpful for us and for the board to see that data so that we can get a better perspective into what that looks like, as what this performance looks like in relation to our absenteeism. So not really a question, but I guess more of like an ask for going forward, if there's a way for us to extrapolate this data so that we can look at absenteeism as it's in relation to these grades and some of the other areas like Algebra 1, the 8th graders and things like that, so we can get a bigger picture of how all of this relates to each other.
Yes, so I'm looking at Miss Santiago right in front of me. She's been doing a majorly heavy lift. So thank you, first and foremost, Nora. That's what we're attempting to do, and that's where we're attempting to get to. So, there's lots of cross-referencing many different reports. You have several different reports. And the system isn't necessarily built and designed that way just yet, but we're working on it, and that's the intention.
Yes, lots of handwritten data crunching. I'm sorry, but thank you for that work.
Any other questions from members of the board? Ms. Palmer.
So one thing that stands out to me is, pretty consistently, although definitely clearly areas where there have been improvements, which I love to see, it still feels to me like there are consistently, certain groups that are doing well and are more highly proficient, certain groups that just are not as highly proficient. What stays consistent is that, the groups that struggle, for lack of a better term, are still the groups that struggle. So I'm sure chronic absenteeism, like if we looked at it, I'm sure that there's a lot of crossover there. But A, are there other factors? And B, like what ultimately, in your opinion, as the education experts, moves the needle for those groups? I know that there's no magic pill, there's no quick fix, but I just kind of a big question, but I'm just curious what you think.
There is inextricably a tremendous connection between chronic absenteeism. The group, if you look at just demographically, that we have massive opportunities in trying to push forward economically disadvantaged students, for instance. While the district's 4-year number I shared was 8.8 and 8.6, I'm sorry, 3 years before COVID, it was 15.6 for that same group of students at that same point. The district has moved to 14.6 in the last 4 years. That group is 26.3% chronic absenteeism. Remember, now that's the aggregate of all the children who fall in that category. That doesn't mean that every one of those children weren't proficient. When you further break it down and you reduce that number down to those who weren't proficient, that number continues to go up and skyrocket. So as you further disaggregate. So what I'm seeing absenteeism, again, chronic absenteeism is 18 absences. I said if you miss 12 days to 17, you have more than half of the population of kids who aren't successful who've missed more than 12 days of school. And again, that's the issue I think that we have to we have to solve. We get our kids in school, we get them in the classrooms, our teachers will do their part, and they'll do their due diligence and ensure that our kids learn. So.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Good questions. Thank you so much, board members, for your engagement on this. I know that, this is a presentation that is mandated to be given to us once a year with a template from NJDOE. And I want to thank Ms. Holmgren and Ms. Santiago and the entire CNI team, the staff and the curriculum supervisors, all of you for all of your work on this. I know that what you're giving us is a quick snapshot that only skims the surface of all the deep dive work that you do. And we really appreciate it. And we want to continue to partner with you just to build on Ms. Palmer's question. I think our ask as a board is, how can we help? You're bringing this data to us. We're all here volunteering because we care about the kids the same way you care about the kids. And we want to know, what can we do as a board to move the needle, in Ms. Palmer's phrase, to help these kids become even more successful as the years go on. So thank you for partnering with us in that. We really do appreciate it. All right, guys, it's a heavy meeting tonight. We're not done yet. We are moving on to administrative reports, and the first one is something that we asked for. It is a quarterly update on the district goals from Dr. Morton. Now, just to remind everybody, we have been receiving updates on our goals through different presentations received throughout the year. The board requested that quarterly we get sort of a sky-high look at all of our goals and where we were with progress on those goals. So this is the first of 4 to see how we're progressing on the goals that we set. Take it away, Dr. Morton.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Winters. So absolutely, this is somewhat of a newer process for us, but it's a good process, and it's an opportunity for us to reflect and just capture our progress and to see where we are relative to the district goals that have been established. So the quarterly updates themselves speak to the KPIs and the actions that have been established via our current district goals. They're intended to capture whether we're on track to meet those KPIs and actions, whether we're off track, if there's any significant highlights or hindrances for those specific KPIs and actions. I'm just going to share quickly where this information can be found. We believe it's important for the community to have an opportunity to see it as well. So this is obviously the district's homepage. If you go to our district, here, click on strategic plan and scroll down. You'll see that information here. So district goals, quarterly updates. If you click on this takes you to a spreadsheet that shows whether we're on track for that particular priority and that aim or not. This particular here will take you to a written summary of this document here. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I really just wanted to create situational awareness so people understand where you can find this and have an opportunity to see this information. As mentioned, these are quarterly goals, so we'll do updates as reflected here. And the next one is scheduled for January 27th. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. I'm not sure if there's questions, so I'll hold here.
Board members, you had a chance to review the update on the goals. Are there any questions at this time for Dr. Morton? Seeing no questions, it must have been a fabulous update. We appreciate it. Everything's on track. So I don't think the board at this point, I don't see anybody having any specific questions. It's early in the year. I suspect that as the year goes on and we start to continue our progress, we'll have more questions. But members, if you have any questions going forward, feel free to send them on in so we can interrogate that further. Thank you for creating those documents.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winters, again. I just want to give an update on where we are. I know there was the discussion about library books and the district stance and all that's occurred. So I want to address it head on. So we shared a memorandum from myself on, I believe, Friday, Ms. Barati, Friday-ish or so, to attempt to clarify the district's position around where we are. First and foremost, I think it's essential, and I want everybody to hear it very clearly. The district is not seeking to censor or ban any books. That has not been a discussion with the board. We have not discussed any policy around that. We have not had any discussions that have been binding and terminal type of conversation around that. Truly, the discussion was intended to be about establishing a consistent process for how books are vetted for age appropriateness in our school libraries. So obviously, different than the public library, we're a school district that has different levels of kids. And what may be appropriate reading material for high school age kids may not be the same for elementary age kids. So just ensuring that we have a consistent process across the board is really what we were seeking to accomplish. I had a great meeting today with several of our outstanding media specialists, and we support our media specialists wholeheartedly. We believe in them, and they do a fantastic job for us. We were able to review a protocol that they had discussed amongst themselves as a group that they were able to present to me to ensure that the designation of books, the process that would be used to designate the books that will be chosen was consistent across the board. So great process, forthright. Everybody is on board with that process. Additionally, they added another piece as well, just to provide some substance to the conversation around providing opportunities for parents to be in the loop and for parents to be aware of the materials that their children are reading. So on our school-based websites, and I can demonstrate this as well. Various school websites. One second just to pull this up. I just want to show where this can be generated. So this is the district's page. If you go to any of the school pages themselves, under quick links, there we go. Okay, under quick links, you'll see a link for Destiny. It says Destiny here. This is Fall at Destiny. This link here is fantastic. Our media specialist has set this up where this contains repository, so to speak, of all of the book titles that are available in the school libraries. Parents can go on this site here. You can pull up your school and you can preview or look at all of the various books that are available for your children to read. They're separated by themes and topics, and the titles are here. Further, if you acquire your child's login information, parents have an opportunity to see the exact books that their children have borrowed from the libraries as well. You know, one of the great things that we believe as a school district is the opportunity for families to engage in dialogue, right, about materials that children are consuming, materials that children are reading, materials that families seek for their children to acquire and read. This site provides a phenomenal opportunity for families to go through, preview books. You can identify books that you may want your child to borrow, and engage in conversations. Ms. Winters, I know you and I discuss all the time conversations that you're able to have with your children, and we believe that provides great family structure and family time. Any concerns that families have about whether to choose a book or whether not to choose a book, that's family prerogative, and we respect that wholeheartedly. So we'll provide more information about how families can navigate this site and how they can go about acquiring their logins and logging into it so that they have accurate information of what their children are reading. We are not providing or requiring any parent permission slips or anything of that nature for book selections. So, and I want to be very clear, Cherry Hill Public Schools is not seeking to censor or ban any books.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. We appreciate it. Moving on to our next administrative report, Mr. Schimpf is going to provide us with an update on the projects in our schools.
Thank you. I'll try to work through this rather quickly. Okay, so tonight we're just going to focus on obviously the projects that are ongoing or currently under construction, and I'll jump into providing additional status updates on upcoming projects that I alluded to last month. So good news here over at Malberg and Kilmer, we are wrapping up these additions and renovations to these two buildings. So right now, these classroom additions are scheduled to come online obviously in January. We are still on schedule. We are down to, I'll get into the pictures in a second, but here you can see at Malberg, we actually have classrooms completed. So flooring, ceilings, windows, everything are in. I won't go through the full laundry list, but we're getting very, very close to getting into punch list type items at both Malberg and Kilmer. You can see here at Kilmer, just a couple shots. I included this. So the playground is just about done. All the equipment is installed. The rubber surfacing has been poured, and that's curing as we speak. You can see on the right, the fencing around the retention basin. And then the final piece is really the casework that you see going in to the classrooms. You can kind of see the cubbies there, or the lockers for the preschoolers. Jumping into Rosa. Oh, again, I should also mention that the substantial completion date is really December 10th on those additions at the preschool level. Furniture is scheduled to actually start being delivered on the 15th. So we are on target with that as well. And Dr. Mahan's office is coordinating those efforts along with buildings and grounds. So Rosa, you can see Rosa now has a front entrance, which it didn't necessarily have in the past. Substantial completion on the full Rosa projects still is scheduled for August 21st of 2026, but there are intermediate milestones throughout. So the B wing renovations over at Rosa obviously wrapped up this past summer. The main office renovations, including the main entrance here, are scheduled to come online on November 28th. So we're just about to that point. Cafeteria addition is scheduled to be completed. I have a couple update photos here, scheduled to be completed by July of 2026. And then the A and the C wing renovations are scheduled for the summer of 2026 over at Rosa. So all projects over at Rosa will be wrapped up by the end of next summer. So you can see here just a couple pictures. On the top left, this is the ramp to the stage area in the new cafetorium. You can also see the cafetorium stage slab there, as well as the roof trusses being laid for that area. The roof trusses and associated structural steel components have actually been installed. Roof decking is currently in progress. And again, we're on target to wrap Rosa up by 8/1/26. Here you could just see the main office area and the main entrance that'll be coming online again at the end of this month. So on the left, you can see some of the mechanical piping and ductwork completed. Ceiling grid installation, including the lighting, is actually complete. So you can see these pictures are from the end of October here. Walls and door frames are painted. So again, turnover of the front entrance area is expected by Thanksgiving recess. And fully completed and ready to be occupied, just thereafter. This is just another look. I think I included this last month of the phase 2 work that'll be commencing when the kids let out in June. So just a reminder, the work in Rosa consists of obviously asbestos abatement and renovations in all areas, all classrooms, including the existing cafetorium and serving areas, as well as the A-wing classrooms and media center. That's all part of phase 2, you can see here. Just a reminder, the existing cafetorium is being reconfigured into instructional music room, 2 instrument storage rooms, a new general classroom, and additional student toilet rooms. So the A and the C wing renos will commence again when the students let out in June, and they're scheduled to be completed again by the end of the summer. So the original allowance on this project was just about 290,000, and we still have about 200,000 left. So we're progressing not only on time, but also on budget without many surprises in between there. So just jumping into Carusi, you can see here the new main entrance at Carusi Middle School, as well as the plaque. Again, this is the larger projects that's ongoing. This is almost a $28 million ongoing renovation. There really isn't an area of Carusi that isn't being touched. And again, within Carusi, the renovations are being phased over a 4-phase period. Full completion over at Carusi isn't scheduled to occur until 2028. So right now we are in phase 2, the abatement and renovation of the B wing blue, along with the yellow between the cafeteria and gym. These are scheduled to be wrapped up by May of 2026. And then phase 3 will jump into when the students let out, and that'll be the abatement and reno of the D wing, music suite, cafeteria, and just the remaining spaces there in the C wing. And then the final phase will be E wing and remaining D wing spaces, along with the F wing, which is the media center and the adjacent rooms. But those projects won't begin until June of 2027. So all full completion over at Carusi is still on schedule for spring 2028. Just a couple photos. So work in the B wing continues. You can see ceiling grid installations, door frames being installed, walls being painted, floors being prepared for floor tile. The B wing roof replacement is complete. Coping and the siding is about 90% complete. Some minor punch work or punch list work is ongoing still in the C wing, and that's taking place actually before students arrive in the morning. So all total B wing HVAC is about 90% complete. We've already started the programming of the HVAC controls, and we'll be scheduling equipment startup and testing here shortly. So the photos, you can see oversized door frame that's actually a custodial closet, and a new, or I'm sorry, in the bottom left. And then you can see a new wall or separation wall that was constructed between 2 classrooms, which used to be an accordion type door. That's between B9 and B10. This is just a classroom here. You can see ceiling grid going in the B wing. And then on the bottom, you can see a unit ventilator being wired up as well in the B wing. So substantial progress occurring there as well. Here, this similar to Rosa, this is just to show future phasing. So phase 3 again will begin in June when the students let out, and you can see the highlighted portions there. The cafeteria, again, a music suite work is to be completed by the end of August, and then D wing will continue through summer of 2027. So Carusi, we had an original allowance of 400,000. We're down to about 144,000. But all in all, when you compare that to overall construction progress that's been made, we're right on target with that as well. I don't know why I kind of went out of order here. Sorry, one second. All right. So just to talk about the future, those are the 3 remaining projects or ongoing projects. Just to talk about the upcoming projects. So Beck interior renovations, you may recall last month, unfortunately, we had to reject the bids that were submitted. We had the low bidder who ended up withdrawing their bid due to a mathematical technical error. So the rebid is scheduled to open actually on November 18th. So our architect tells us we have actually additional general contractors that have pulled down the spec this time. So we're looking for additional competition there. High school auditoriums, those bids are currently on the street, and we'll be accepting those bids next week as well on the 20th. Just a reminder that little change, minor modification from the last time I spoke. We will be doing the East Auditorium first. which will begin in April of 2026 and will conclude in December. But instead, with the critical HVAC work that we also have scheduled for the gymnasiums, instead of doing or taking the East Auditorium and the East Gymnasium offline at the same time, we're now going to take the East Auditorium and then we'll take the West Gymnasium offline and take care of that HVAC work, and then vice versa. In April of 2027, we'll do the West Auditorium and then the East Gymnasium. We are now at a point where we can announce or I guess officially announce the next round of security vestibule installations. These bids are scheduled to be issued on January 5th, and we're actually going to bid these in two separate lumps. So we're going to do Johnson and Sharp. Those bids will hit the street on January 5th. And then Barton and Kingston will be issued the week later on the 12th. So we'll be looking to take care of those four security vestibules during the summer of 2026 as well. In addition to that, just to get into the site work a little bit, we're looking to issue bids in January. And again, we're going to lump a couple of the sites together, but we're looking to do site improvements, which include accessibility and parking lot upgrades at Johnson and Mann. Mann also includes a new parking lot to address some of the parking issues we currently have over there. And we'll also be bundling Kilmer and Knight's parking lot and accessibility project upgrades as well. We're still with our engineer and our transportation department and others, we're still taking a hard look at East High School's parking lot and the way our buses pick up and drop off and parental pickup and drop off. So a lot of ideas being tossed around. Again, you may recall that we're going to have to take that parking lot work in phases, as the F wing that we're going to be demolishing and redoing is located in an area where we can't avoid. So if we did major asphalt work, it'll get damaged. So should have more to share hopefully on East's final layout and design. That's the one that's under the most scrutiny, and we're going to see significant change, I believe, over at East's layout shortly. Just two final things: the playground enhancements. Additional playground enhancements will be made at Mann as well as Stockton, and we'll be looking to take advantage of co-ops to take care of those two playgrounds, similar to what we've done with past playgrounds at other sites. So certainly at the next meeting, we'll be bringing two large projects to you, hopefully for approval and award of contract, and can share a few more updates there. But this is pretty much how things are going to look, at least moving forward, starting in the spring of 2026 here. So if anybody has any questions or.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff.
Yeah.
You really just fit right in here, don't you? You came right into it. That is a lot of work. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And I have to say that I did hear feedback over at High School East about the concern with the gym and the auditorium. So I'm excited to hear that that's being flip-flopped with West, so that major large spaces aren't all going offline at the same time.
Correct.
And I'm sure every East parent and student and anybody who's ever tried to drive to East is now rejoicing to hear that eventually the parking lot will be reconfigured.
Yes, lots of work, a lot of people involved, so hopefully we get this right.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic for the kids. Ms. Stern.
Just a comment of appreciation. As someone who was very involved in conversations with community members who, came out and supported this, which community members will say, I voted for the bond, I supported this, we have a lot of gratitude. I have a lot of gratitude for the community for doing that. And I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that we are doing these projects on time, on budget, with regular report outs. And, when the bond passed and then it started becoming reality, this is going to happen. We didn't really have a clear, defined mechanism of how the community was going to know that there was accountability for these bond projects. And it's really, it really evolved into, the meetings that we started being able to attend, the monthly meeting now updates, and these very regular updates, which are like a lot. Like sometimes I glaze over a little bit, with how much is going on. And I'm not always, I'm always like, well, what month was this, or what year is this? But honestly, it's just, I think, such a credit to this district of how this entire process is continuing to unfold. And this is truly like, taxpayer dollars coming directly back to the taxpayer, benefits the entire community with very significant accountability. So I just really want to thank you, Dr. Morton and Mr. Schimpf, and all the folks that you work with who help make this happen, and for the continued updates, which are, we get many of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members on bond projects? I'm very excited about the preschool edition. Can't wait. January will be here before we know it. It felt like January today. All right, moving on to correspondence. And I think this time I'm going to start on this side with Ms. Sherfain, if anybody has any correspondence to share from the last 2 weeks.
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Ms. Manzano.
I had the pleasure of seeing the East concert on October 29th, where it was a pretty cool examination of every awesome music program they have there. So every ensemble performed one number. And so I just want to extend a super thank you to Mr. Kelleher, Mr. Palmer, Ms. Mandescu, Ms. Lockhart, and Ms. Lousy, because it was just wonderful. I was excited to be there.
Mr. Mayor.
Nothing to share.
I was also at the fall preview. It was indeed fabulous. Mr. Greenbaum.
Nothing this week. Thank you.
Dr. Dreisen.
Nothing this week.
Ms. Stern.
Nothing to report.
Dr. Braddock.
Nothing to report.
And Ms. Palmer.
I joined Mrs. Winters at the annual Zone PTA breakfast with a number of Zone PTA representatives, a number of representatives of the administration and staff, catered by the West, is it culinary students who, if you've ever tasted their stuff, do a phenomenal job. So thank you to everyone involved. It was my first time. Was happy to be there. I'm sorry, and Mrs. Stern. Did I miss anyone else? If I missed anyone else, I apologize. But I appreciated the opportunity.
Everybody who knows me knows I will go literally anywhere the West students are cooking. I cannot say enough about, what was it, stuffed French toast?
And the pumpkin
croissant things.
They're
They're just
really good.
incredible. Like literally, if you ever want a board member to show up, just tell us the West culinary kids will be there and we will all show up. That's how you get us to appear.
Well, and as fabulous as it is for us to enjoy their food, what I enjoyed even more was talking to the students, some of whom are going on to culinary school next year. They've actually been accepted to culinary programs in 4-year, college programs at some very impressive institutes. So, if there's ever a doubt, and some of those kids are kids that I've seen over time on my time on the board who maybe I saw them in situations where they've had more struggles, and to be able to hear those updates from them, I mean, it's such a joy. Is why we go to these events, is to interact and see the kids having these successes. So.
And we laugh and we joke about how great the food is and we'll eat anything for free. But I mean, the professionalism and the skill that those students demonstrate is really, truly impressive. It's easy to forget that they're, high school students because it is at that caliber. So kudos to everyone who is involved.
It is amazing to watch them bloom. It really is. And then to hear about their plans for the future. It's so awesome. So cheers and kudos to High School West yet again, and their culinary students who are incredible. All right, we have made it to first public comment. So there are 2 opportunities for public comment this evening, and the first public comment section is for board action items only. So those are items we are voting on this evening. Those are items number 17 through 20. If you want to speak on any other topic other than those items, you may speak during the second public comment period. The exception to the rule is that if you are a student, you may speak on any topic at any time. So if there's a student in the room or a student online, you are welcomed and invited to speak now at first public comment. If you are online, please put an S after your name on your sign in. That way I can see it, and that way I know to call on you first. Speakers must provide their name, municipality, and the action item they're speaking on. We will alternate between speakers here in the room and those wishing to comment online. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak, and the timer on the screen will indicate the amount of time you have remaining. All statements, questions, and comments will be addressed to the chair, and your inquiry may or may not be addressed by district administration at the close of the session. So I am going to open first public comment. By custom and practice, we start in the room. Is there anyone in the room who would like to come up and provide first public comment tonight on an action item? I do not see any takers in the room. Give me 1 minute to get my computer to work. Because we do have a commenter online. It is a phone number ending in 788. It is your turn. Please unmute, give us your name, municipality, and the action item which you are speaking on.
My name is Jeff Podowitz. I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and this is 17.3, approval of research projects. I don't know. I've spoken against research projects before about the kids with using the kids in Cherry Hill, and I feel the same way. I mean, you're worried that you're supposed to be educating these kids and worry about education, not about research projects. I mean, our kids aren't guinea pigs. Enough already. One has to do with a master's program in psychology, and it's kids, and it's about ASD students' independence in apologizing for behaviors. I don't know what the details about that are, but the kids, I mean, teach the kids. If they're ASD, which I suppose is autism spectrum disorders, teach the kids. Don't do research on them. I'm sorry. Vote no, but you won't. Another is a master's portfolio for early childhood education, celebrating our cultures by integrating family stories and traditions into early learning experiences. You're going to do a research project. And with our kids in Malberg, our early childhood center, kids with disabilities, and kids without disabilities, about culture. I mean, celebrating our cultures. Celebrate education, not our different cultures. Please, research on cultures, acculturating. I hope it's not a backdoor way to DEI. I've made comments about DEI that from a lawyer in a law review that it's the way it's run, it isolates Jews. I have another article that the Jewish struggle in the 21st century, conflict, positionality, and multiculturalism, and it's by a Dr. Daniel Ian Rubin, and how when it comes to DEI, Jews are isolated from it, and it's the way it's being taught. He wrote a number of books on that subject. So why are you doing culture? Just teach the kids to be together and learn together, and you're already teaching separation on kids in preschool. You got to separate different people. Stop it. And again, as I said, I've read articles about this, and go look up Dr. Daniel Ian Rubin and see what he's written on that subject having to do with Jewish. But just learn about each other and be friendly and just teach. And please vote no on these studies, on 2 studies. It's ridiculous already. Thank you very much. But you're gonna vote yes. Separatism, separate people and whatever. Take care.
Thank you for your
Goodbye.
comment. Thank you, Dr. Podowitz. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make first public comment this evening? Seeing none, I'm going to go back to the line. The next person, it just says Zoom user. Zoom user, if you could unmute, give us your name, municipality, and the action item you're speaking on this evening.
This is Rick Short, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm speaking on the same issue that Dr. Podowitz just brought up. Our children aren't lab rats. This district is constantly running research with Rutgers University. It's endless. Again, our children aren't lab rats. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Going back to the room, is there anyone who would like to make first public comment? Seeing none, going back online, the next person is Ken Lee. It is your turn. Please unmute, give us your name, municipality, and the action item you're speaking on.
Good evening. My name is Ken Lee. I live in Cherry Hill in the districts of Clara Barton Elementary, as well as Carusi Middle and Cherry Hill West. I'm noticing the 17.3 approval of research project. I'm assuming it is also related to ASD and probably on top of it, ways to improve kids' behavioral. I just want to make comment to Dr. Potowitz and Rick Short. Both of you are not educators currently, so I suggest that you stay out of this right now. Quite honestly, DEI is the explanation you are trying to give is basically saying it causes more violence, when it's people that teach ignorance and hate that actually causes an increase in bullying, and which is why we also see the increase of reports, because we have now been able to speak up against racism and discrimination within our schools. So quite honestly, I'd like to commend the Board of Education here for doing all the work that you guys are currently doing right now. And at this point, I'd say I approve of these research projects because quite honestly, ASD is such a it's such a wide topic that still hasn't been fully understandable. And as research has gone through and through, there's even more research that shows it's a wider spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Going back to the room, is there anyone who would like to make first public comment? Seeing none, going back online, I don't see anyone who would like to make first public comment. So I'm going to close first public comment for this evening. Just as a point of information, I want to let everybody know that if you look at the CNI report out, which we'll be doing in a little bit, the CNI committee does receive and review and discuss all research that is done in the district. So the committee receives that information. The committee discussed it at its meeting in November, then it's recommended out to the full board, and that's why it's on the agenda tonight. But we will get to that when we get to the board work session, which is coming up soon, I believe. And we're there. All right, give me 1 minute just to shift over. Thank you for your patience. So my job is fairly easy tonight reporting out from CNI because most of what we did in the meeting was the NJSLA data presentation, which we just had a robust discussion about earlier in this meeting, so I won't belabor that point. But I did want to, again, go over some of the other things that happened in the meeting. We did get we were told about the Beck Middle School musical, which is going to be Mean Girls Junior this year. So now we have all our 3 middle school musicals approved. We did talk about the 2 studies that were just discussed during first public comment. They're items number 2 and 3 on our agenda. And the committee, like I said, received information on those and recommended them for approval. We got an informational item about the family life curriculum in grades K through 12 and the information shared with parents about that curriculum. And then we went through the spring testing report. And like I said, I'm not going to go back through the entire conversation. I think the board tonight actually did a really good job bringing out the highlights of that. We did discuss a couple of things that didn't come out tonight. We discussed the correlation between district benchmarks and the strategic plan, the district goals, and NJSLA data and how that all works together. We talked about formative versus summative assessments, which is something that the administration continues to educate the board about, which I think I'm slowly beginning to grasp. The staff does a great job of explaining it every time so that we understand. We do appreciate that. We talked about MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, and how that plays into all of these things. We talked about special education. Ms. Mallory was there, and we talked about our subgroups in those areas and how that relates to the NJSLA data. And we did have a big conversation, and I'm not going to, again, belabor the point because Dr. Morton did a fabulous job about the connection between chronic absenteeism and our student success data. So that was something that we talked about. Any other committee members want to contribute or any other board members want to add to the conversation? Ms. Sherfain.
Thank you. I was hoping I was hoping that somebody, maybe Dr. Morton or some hates me. Okay, I was hoping that Dr. Morton or somebody could just address the process or procedure at which for research projects are students or parents aware when they happen? Do they opt in, opt out? How does that work?
Hi. So when somebody puts forward a research proposal, they must submit to me on their school letterhead exactly what the research is, what it entails, what's it intended to do, what degree they're working toward, any communication they intend on sending to any families, any permission slips, any survey information that they intend on giving to any participants. All of that gets read through, gets vetted. They need a guarantee that everything remains anonymous, that students are anonymous, as well as the district itself, and that there's no recording that's done either, video or audio. Once I have all of that guaranteed, we go back and forth. If there's things in it that we would not approve, we go back. If they can remove it, they do. If they can't, they move on to someplace else.
So just to confirm, if I was to receive notification that my child's teacher was undergoing a research study, I have the choice to opt out or opt my children out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I add to that too? Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, Dr. Raddick.
So as a researcher, someone who does a lot of research, I should also add there's another layer of security here too for the kids, in that the researcher coming from a university has to go through their university institutional review board before they even come to the school. So there's an ethics committee at the university level who looks at the entire study, make sure that all the stipulations surrounding the study, everything the researcher's doing is safe for the students. And for people under the age of 18, the threshold is super high for those institutional review boards to approve them. So it's been through 2 layers of security. An ethics review board at a university, an accredited university, has already approved it, and the school district has approved it too. So I'm completely fine and completely confident in that there's no research being done that has negative implications for students. And I should also add too, if anybody's worried about negative responses to the research, the IRB won't approve the study unless there is recourse for somebody if they feel they've been harmed by research in any way. I've done studies where I've asked somebody one question. I have to be able to tell them, well, if you feel harmed by my one question, here is the recourse for you. And that recourse is counseling, all kinds of other things. But it wouldn't get to that point with these kids anyway. So there's several layers of protection here.
Thank you. Ms. Manzano.
I just want to commend our educators and our administrators here in the fact that if they are wanting to further their own education and research, that coming to their home base of Cherry Hill really should mean a lot to our families, because they don't want to expand to another district. They want to do it here where they can make a difference almost immediately. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Ms. Stern.
Ms. Staffen, would you also be able to speak a little bit to what kind of courses that we offer our students and opportunities in terms of their own learning if they're interested in a career in research or data science or statistics? If you could speak a little bit to that, how perhaps what we offer, and then how does that tie into what we are modeling in our own district?
Sure. So we adhere to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, and there are standards about research that go all the way down to the elementary level and all the way up. When we get to the high school, we hone it in and become much more specified. So students as early as 9th grade might participate in a research and science course where they are picking a topic in science to research. Our students have been able to compete in the Coriel Science Fair and earn tens of thousands of dollars toward their college educations. So that's one way that they can participate in research. And I'm sorry, Ms. Stern, if you can repeat the next part.
Well, I was thinking, that's kind of open very broadly, and we also have added data science
and
course,
quantitative
right?
reasoning, yes, in the math. Mhm.
And we have a statistics course, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
So, I don't know why we would teach all these things to our students and yet not have that available as something that our own educators participate in.
Yes.
So thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else on the CNI committee meeting? We are moving, as we try to move towards greater meeting efficiency, which Ms. Gilfillan is diligently helping me with. We are trying to not just read out the committee reports, since the reports are in there embedded for the board and the public to review, but rather to try to generate good discussion. So really good job tonight on that, you guys. I think it's better for us and better for the community who may be listening to hear us engage on the issues rather than just read out the reports. So that is the high bar I have set. And with that, moving on to Mr. Greenbaum, who's going to engage us in thrilling discussion about BNF.
Absolutely. And in this case, I mostly am going to read out the committee report because Mr. Schimpf did a fantastic job of summarizing what we discussed. The focus of this month's BNF committee meeting was all about the 26-27 budget preparation process. The committee reviewed key milestones that are included in the budget calendar. Mr. Schimpf provided an overview of the information that he provided to each of the schools and department heads regarding the budget prep process. The district will be utilizing a zero-based budgeting approach, which is different from the incremental-based approach from past years. Unlike traditional budgeting, which often builds on prior year allocations, zero-based budgeting requires every program and expense to be justified from the ground up. This methodology forces the organization to analyze needs and associated costs from a zero base rather than assuming existing funding levels. With the uncertainty that we have in the upcoming budget cycle, we're hoping that this is a way to really ensure that everything that we're budgeting for, we need, and we're not just building in stuff because it was there last year. Let's keep building on that. That being said, we also met in closed session to discuss some of the potential challenges that we may expect to see. And we had a brief discussion on the impact on state aid due to new governor being elected, which we now know the outcome of. And I think that wraps it up. Are there any questions from committee members or other board members? Yes, Ms. Palmer.
I just want to reinforce the point about zero-based budgeting and just commend Mr. Schimpf, your office on taking that approach. I think this year of all years, we all know the anticipated budget challenges, fiscal challenges for the state. I think getting to a point where obviously every budget is a budget that we've supported, that we feel like we're budgeting what's essential, but it's just a new opportunity to look at things in a different way and just really make sure that we are prioritizing from the school-based level up through central administration what's really most important for our students. So thank you.
Okay, yes, Mr. Payne.
I'm going to try it. I was hoping, Mr. Schimpf, you can give us just a brief overview of what zero-based budgeting is and how you see in your role the benefits of that versus maybe how we've done it previously.
Yeah, it's coming from a district that went through similar funding struggles as Cherry Hill. We kind of went to this method, back when we were all fighting, I guess, for S2, where it's more of a I don't want to use the wrong. It's everything's thoughtful. I mean, incremental budgeting. Obviously, people are thinking and budgeting appropriately, but we found when you task schools or departments to literally start from the ground up versus me saying, and I'll just make this up, Stockton, you have $300,000 because that's what you spent or that's what you budgeted for this year. This approach really makes them hone in and validate every budgetary request with a justification, meaning, how does this get us closer to our goals? How does this expense or this service, this position, push us towards our goals, which essentially goes back to obviously our strategic plan, our building or district level goals, our school goals. So in addition to them, building from the ground up, I mean, obviously looking at historical spending trends and things is important. Again, in the zero base, and I reiterate this, I think at the BNF meeting too, is just, we're talking about 25% of the overall budget. Because again, people, salaries and benefits is really a vast majority of our budget. It's just, we're a labor intensive industry, right? So it's a different approach. I think this is the right year to do it. There's certainly positives and strengths to incremental based type budgeting, but I think this is an opportune time to kind of just take a different approach and a different look. I'll be side by side with all of our principals and administrators and department heads and all of that as we navigate this process, and kind of excited to see where this build goes, and see what, how state aid and all of those other things shake out. But
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments from other board members? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
That was an excellent lead into the HR committee discussion. Ms. Stern.
Mr. Fain and I are going to split up this portion, I guess, of HR, proceeding with HR. So we primarily talked about these new positions, which Dr. Morton has brought forward. I guess in the vein of like zero-based budgeting, it sounds like my layperson's understanding is it's kind of like taking a fresh set of eyes, looking at like stepping back and really looking at what do we really need and going from there. I liken these positions to that kind of thing. Dr. Morton is taking using his fresh set of eyes to really look at, are we, do we have the positions in place that we really need to reach our goals? And so with that, we have three proposed positions, one that's similar to a position we recently filled temporarily and then we were looking to make some adjustments. So there's the director position, and let me just read them out. The Director of Special Projects and Student Services. And then that is a position, I guess we had originally the Director of Guidance position and actually we had, Dr. Morton had shared with us that really in going through some of the interview process and looking at certifications, and that really there's a recognition that a better fit for what we're looking for, and in terms of also finding like the best candidate for this type of job, we're better off changing the position around a little bit to Director of Special Projects and Student Services, and then having a supervisory position, the Supervisor of School Counseling, who will be more kind of, I would say, a little bit more granular, a little bit more boots on the ground, working more directly with the with guidance counselors. So those were two. And then the third one was the community engagement liaison. So so the committee met, we discussed these initially, and then we had some follow-up internal discussions with committee members, and that brought forward a lot of questions and a lot more thoughts about that, which we kind of fed, in our feedback loop, brought to Dr. Morton and Ms. Lieber. And then, some continued interrogation, as we say, in the modern use of the word interrogate, interrogate the question. So we thought it would make sense to have a little bit more of a conversation as part of our work session with the full board tonight. So I want to open it up to, thoughts, questions, ideas about these three positions. Not positions, three job descriptions to say, because we're just discussing job descriptions. We're not voting them tonight. We're just discussing them, but they are new and different. So I'm going to stop here and ask board members who might be interested in, sharing thoughts, ideas, and looking at these, if you anything you want to bring forward. I guess we'll start with committee members first. And Mr. Fain.
I guess I think it would be helpful because it's probably hard. Maybe I'm assuming, but it might be hard for some of the other board members to really wrap their head around a lot of it since they weren't part of the original discussions. And I was hoping, Dr. Morton, maybe you can just give us a very brief overview and then how that relates to the current positions that we're redefining.
I'm very verbose. Brief is going to be tough. I'll
Well-
hold on to my seat. Essentially, the two positions, Director of Special Projects and Student Services, does exactly what Ms. Stern shared. It's a revision of the title of Director of Guidance, but it affords us a greater opportunity to a wider pool of candidates, which we believe would be more beneficial. It also adjusts some of the responsibilities to focus on supervision of a supervisor who will work directly with the school counselors, and it also positions that person as the individual who will do much of the heavy lifting that had traditionally been shared between the supervisors of student services role that we currently had in the district as well. The other community engagement liaison positions speak directly to our need around chronic absenteeism and the need for us to go out externally outside of the schools and to support our families and help them to connect them with support services and resources, and also to get them back in school.
I think something else that's important to just mention about our discussion with the community engagement liaison was something that we brought up through the committee was, I guess, who exactly are we looking for in that position? And the discussion was based around, would that be somebody with a social work background and what that really looks like? So I think it's important for the board to know that we did look into that. Obviously, some of us are a little bit more experienced with that understanding and background than the rest of us, but I think it's important that the rest of the board knows that that was a topic of discussion, because when we consider these job descriptions moving forward and voting on them, having that perspective and knowing what to expect of who will be filling that role is important, as well as we considered budgetary requirements for those positions as well, because it's not simply just a salary for these people, it's benefits, it's all of those other things that go into having a role in the district under whatever circumstance. So that was kind of some of the discussion that we had in the committee. I guess that's kind of it of all, just to recap some of the discussion that we are having. Yeah.
Thank you. Other board member comments, questions? Mr. Greenbaum.
Thank you. These aren't so much questions as they are just comments, because some of these were questions that I had in internal discussions, which mostly just got me up to speed with what the HR committee was already discussing. But my understanding of the community engagement liaison position, the primary focus is on addressing chronic absenteeism. It addresses post-pandemic issues with chronic absenteeism that we talked about a little bit earlier. And there's a strong correlation with proficiency gaps that were discussed earlier this evening with chronic absenteeism trends. And we see that particularly with the subgroups that are most impacted on both sides. Some of the questions I had were about looking at the trends over recent years with particular subgroups overall with chronic absenteeism, and we're starting to see it decline a little bit, but not to pre-pandemic levels. And the discussion turned to, looking at some of the supports we've been able to put in place through MTSS and other supports, but those only work when we get the kids in school. And my understanding is these positions, the focus is, it goes beyond a truancy officer. It's to engage with families. It's to understand the root causes of absenteeism and try to get them back into school, because when they're in school, that's where we're able to get the supports in place. Did I get all that right? Okay. Those are some of the discussions that at least I had with some back and forth with members of the HR committee and other folks. So figured I would share some of the Q&A that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board members have anything they want to? Mrs. Winters.
So the lens that I tried to bring to the Director of Special Projects and the Supervisor of School Counseling positions was, how do these positions link directly into our strategic plan? Because this is a new process for us. We've never had a strategic plan like this before. And I wanted to make sure that everything flows from that and makes sense towards achieving the goals that we've set for the next 5 years. So part of my understanding is that these positions, Director of Special Projects and Supervisor of School Counseling, link into under priority 1, D and E, which are experiential learning opportunities, which is internships, and also post-secondary opportunities, whether college or career or beyond. So I think one question I had was, should we better or more directly articulate some of those items in those job descriptions so that we can make sure to hold those positions accountable as they move us towards achieving the aims and goals that we've set. So that was just sort of my thought. And I am definitely not, of the committee members, I am not the HR expert. I don't have any HR expertise. This is not my wheelhouse. So maybe that the answer is that's not what you do with a job description. But that was just I guess, my concern, that I want to make sure that if we're going to create these new job descriptions, that anything we do from this point forward is directly aligned with our strategic plan, and then measurable and accountable to that plan to make sure that it's moving us towards our goals. Because I think for me, having done priority 1 through the CNI committee, this piece of internships, experiential learning, college and career readiness, it was clearly spoken to us by the community. This was something they really, really wanted. And it was also something that the board was 100% in support of. When I asked board members for feedback on priority 1, that was very clear. So I just want to make sure that we're articulating how these two positions directly relate to those priorities.
So that's, and to share with the full board, that's really what was, I think, resounding when the three of us from the HR committee had further discussions about the position is the piece about these are being brought forth with really focusing on higher level student engagement, these 3 positions, higher level student engagement around to address chronic absenteeism, which is a root cause challenge for our student success, and also of implementing a much more support for the role ultimately of the people who are helping our students do these college and career readiness, the pathways for post-secondary education and post-secondary pathways. I think it felt like we were missing language to tie that into the job descriptions, because that really is the genesis of the job description. So, that's the question that we brought forth. And it's, again, part of all of our discussions about our goals is also about being good fiscal stewards, right? I think Dr. Morton has really led this district, previously with Mr. Sugars, now with Mr. Schimpf, to be very thoughtful about finding, places in our budget where we can have salary savings, or we can have a tighter budget that matches the challenges we face with state aid. And so much success with that. We need to continue to always have that lens. And that's a commitment we made together in partnership. So, in full candid, being fully candid, I don't see those pieces woven in the way I was expecting to in the job description. So that's my ask, is to have them more clearly articulated. It's not that they're not going to happen. It's just that the way that we know that we can tie it clearly, and the people who come after us, I have 1 more year and then I'm done. I'm gone, and I'm not going to be able to have that conversation here at the board table. So, the people can continue to say, well, this is where this genesis was, and this is how we, this is why the board supported it, because that role was part of this. So that's where my thoughts are. And we had some of those emailed email conversations, but really at the table, I don't know if other people have any other, that was just our HR committee bringing those ideas forward. I don't know if other board members have thoughts or ideas, or Dr. Morton, any response from you about that?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing the conversation forward. It's just so much easier for the conversation in person than through email. So one of the things that we look at, and just to understand the concept of philosophy behind how the job descriptions themselves are written versus the strategic plan. So the strategic plan is intended to be more specific, and it's more like targeted at a specific aspect of the role of a counselor or staff member. The way the job description is written, it's more on the macro level as opposed to specific, but the macro level covers the specific nuances of the job. So for instance, in the school council role, it says assist with the formulation of goals and objectives for student counseling programs aligned with district priorities. So technically the expectation is that I could expect for a counselor to ensure that they're aligned with the district's strategic priority, 1E, right, A1E, around college and career pathways, experiential learning, and things along those lines. But as Ms. Lieber and I sat down and we went through each of these essential duties and responsibilities, we had a list of probably 45 different things, and it just was long and cumbersome. We wanted to like pare that down and condense it a bit and make it such that it encompassed all of the general roles and responsibilities that would be required. Specific language could be provided. It just makes the job description longer. So.
Mr. Fain.
Another question that I had that I'm not sure that I articulated well enough via email. Like you said, I'm much better in person than I am via email. Is what the support at the building level looks like for East versus West, knowing that West, as it stands now, has a pretty robust internship program, and how will these positions ensure that East is getting the same experience that West is, building an internship program and providing opportunities for students to participate in the same program?
Yeah, so I'm happy to report that there are about 9 or 10 students at East that are participating for the first time in the experiential learning program this year, and they're having a great experience as well. We actually have someone who you know very well, you were in a picture with last week that we shared, Sandra Castellani. Ms. Castellani is one of our teachers over at High School West, but she also serves as sort of like a coordinator of our experiential learning program district-wide. So she's been at East and at West, obviously she teaches, but she works with students on both sides. We haven't had at the district level, the level of probably like central coordination and support in this manner. And essentially what we're attempting to create is sort of like a department around student services that supports all things that's related to the student experience, counselors, and the career pathways, experiential learning, and things along those lines. I believe these two positions will work in concert with Ms. Castellani, who will still continue. But I see this as our avenue or our way of helping us to really grow and ensure that there's parity between what's happening at both schools. We started this at West many, many years ago. So, there's some catch up on the other side of town as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other board members have any comments, questions? Mostly us in HR. I mean, so Dr. Morton, what I'm hearing from you is you don't want to be overly burdensome, but you're also not, you don't see that there's a problem or a negativity to adding maybe some of the language. It sounds like that's what I heard from you. You didn't want to have 40 things listed, but maybe adding like experiential learning or whatever, maybe there's some agreement that there's, that ultimately is not adding a lot of burden, but does help shape a little bit more really how these positions are forward facing, future facing, and perhaps start to differentiate maybe some of the past roles. I mean, that could, provide that. So I don't know if that's something that, I mean, that's what I was hearing. I don't know if I got that right.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, those are things that we really believe in as
Yeah.
a district. We don't want the job description to be cumbersome and too lengthy.
Right.
But sure, certainly, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's great. Mr. Fain.
Another thing, this is more for board to bring up for the board. When looking forward, but now that we're starting to get real knee deep in budget season and all of that, does it make sense for us? I know as it was explained to us now, when we look at salaries year to year, there's room in what we've looked at from this current year to next year to provide so that we're not overburdening ourselves in a financial situation or standpoint. I guess my question to everybody else is now the right time to be making this decision on these things, or would it make more sense to wait until we have a better understanding of what the budget will look like next year? That's more of just for, it's for I guess for me personally, like to have everybody else's thoughts on that kind of. That's one of the pain points that I have, is making a decision on positions that will require annual budgetary, factors, and whether it makes sense for us to be moving forward at this point, right this second. Well, we're not voting on it tonight, but next meeting is really what I meant.
Mrs. I don't know, Mrs. Palmer, okay, I wasn't sure if you had your hand up. Did you, well, if you, do you want to just weigh in and then we'll go to Mrs. Nurse, since you haven't gotten a chance?
Yeah, and I know that we're not voting on them tonight, but what we're considering just the job descriptions, right? Not necessarily the hiring of or posting of X number of positions. Because I had a similar concern, although my thought is back to the zero-based budgeting conversation. As we put the budget together, we decide what our priorities are. And if this is truly a direction that we're committed to, then I'm definitely not opposed to, if that's the recommendation, to move in that direction. But I appreciate that point. I had the same initial kind of thought, but I don't personally, as one board member, see harm in having the discussion around the descriptions themselves.
Mrs. Winters.
So right now we have somebody in the director of guidance position. So that position is currently exists. That person is retiring at the end of the year. So this would be a continuation of a position that currently is budgeted for this year and exists. Same thing with my understanding, and please correct me if I get this wrong, but the old position that we had for student services, that position would then turn into the supervisor of school counseling. So that person, that was Ms. Carter, who had moved on, that's her position. So those two positions already exist for this current budgetary year. The new positions would be the community engagement liaison. So, but to Ms. Palmer's point, so I'm really comfortable with the director and the supervisor. The community engagement liaisons are new, but to Ms. Palmer's point, if the board is committed to addressing chronic absenteeism, as we've seen it identified as a root cause, then that seems to be the direction to go. I would be in favor of the board really grappling with that job description and getting it ready, so that if we are ready to move forward with it, then it's ready to go, because we can have the job description exist and then decide if something horrible happens with the budget, which is not going to happen because the budget's going to be great this year, you guys. But if it does, that's why Adam keeps me around. Team optimist. But then we can decide. But I would personally, if this is something the board is committed to, I would like to have that set up and ready to go, and then pending what happens, move forward with it if it's something that we decide that we're prioritizing, because the budget is the expression of the priorities of the district. I mean, that's where we put our money, is where we put our heart. I mean, that's what it is. So that would be my preference. But I'm very comfortable with the other two, the director and the supervisor, because they already exist. And like I said, we have somebody in the director position that will be retiring at the end of 2025. So then that role will be available.
Yeah, thank
Mrs.
you.
Trevino.
I was just to say thank you for the explanation, because I did realize with the director, but I missed that part with the supervisor, that it was a reworking of a current position. So I did miss that piece. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the perspectives of everyone, and glad to have the discussion.
Okay, any final thoughts? Okay. Thank you, and move on.
Moving on to P&L. Mr. Mayor, lead us in a robust and productive discussion around P&L priorities.
Which I hope it will be. I don't think it necessarily needs to be terribly lengthy, but because I have a clock staring at me, I see, and we do have an audience here would like their turn at the mic. So that said, thank you to my board members. I'm sure you have already taken a look at the prepared readout. There's no need to go into a whole lot of detail on most of what we discussed on first reading, but I don't want to ignore it. We did go very quickly towards the end of the meeting through the items on first reading, specifically policies 173 through 6220. We got a great deal of comfort from Dr. Mahan, who confirmed for us that the subject matter experts, one of whom is at the board table with us tonight, Mr. Schimpf, and also Caitlin and Mallory, reviewed all of those in detail. And we're very comfortable with the language and suggested revisions from the Strauss-Esme policies. So they will move on to second reading without revision. We spent probably 50 of our 62 minutes, maybe 52 of our 62 minutes on policy 2365, which of course is the acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence. And to say that the conversation involved significant feedback was an understatement. We had a lot of engagement from not just those of us on the board, and I want to open the conversation to other board members as well, of course, but also from Dr. Morton and Dr. Mahan, whose experience as administrators, as experts in education, were able to give us their perspectives on how much of this language is important. Does this language that we're considering adding work for what we need to do in our district? And I think we all understood the importance of not shutting AI out to our students, the importance of recognizing that it has already taken a very prominent role in all levels of education, really, and that one of the important jobs that we as a district have is in educating our students, is also educating them in the appropriate and ethical use of artificial intelligence, when it is appropriate to use it, how it's appropriate to use it, the importance of citations and in attribution in the use of artificial intelligence, and empowering our teachers, our educators, in setting their own guidelines, standards, expectations, not just at the educational level, whether it be middle or high school, but also in particular classes where there may be some classes where the use of artificial intelligence for certain elements of an educational project would be appropriate and useful, and some where it certainly would not be. So we recognize the importance of getting this policy right. Also, the importance of recognizing that the advances in artificial intelligence are monumentally fast, and we do not want to put the district in a position where this policy or any policy has to come back for constant revision. That sort of dynamic does not give educators or students or parents the kind of certainty that they need in understanding how to move forward. So we don't want to put our district in that position. That said, we recognize, because of the speed of AI and because it is so pervasive, sure, this policy probably will need to be revisited, maybe more often than some, maybe revised more often than some. But we want our first policy out the door to be as all-encompassing as it can be, to provide the flexibility for our teaching staff to work with it as well as they possibly can, with the input of subject matter experts where necessary. So all of that is to say that we spent the better part of our meeting, almost the entire meeting. We could have gone on going through the various optional additions through Strauss-Esme. All but one were discussed, and thank you specifically, Dr. Morton, for giving us your perspective on why these are important and how they would be operationalized as well in our district. We have a timeline which still works for us to have a final vote on our AI policy before the end of this year. So we look forward to bringing this on to second reading in December and a vote before the end of the year. We had only two policies on second reading. One One was brought back, 24-22 was brought back because there was a recent statutory change, which was language which was not incorporated in the original language of 24-22. So Latino and Hispanic contributions section was added. So that it now aligns with what is the most current relevant statutory guidance. We would also, and Dr. Mahan, thank you for remaining in the meeting on the line. So if there are any questions, because we did have previous questions on 24-22, I'm sure we'll be able to address those today. That said, for other community members, what did I not get right? What did I forget to mention? Anything else we want to add to that discussion? This is turn.
Just really quick, I think, I thought we had a very honest conversation about just how I don't know if this is the right word, but how extensive and pervasive the topic of AI usage, AI policy, AI plans really are. This is the beginning of a very extensive and pervasive conversation of a technology that, potentially could be as significant as simply like the internet. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a long road. So just, I think, I really appreciated the candidness of Dr. Mahan and Dr. Morton about kind of where we're at in this process and how we're building. And this is just a comment question, but I think the policy references an AI plan, which I guess is in development. And even we're just going to have a lot of work ahead of us and a lot of hands need to be involved, I think, with implementation. But I was very happy we had the starting point. I was very happy we had some stress as my kind of, options to go off of. So that's just my feedback.
And just to build onto that as well, and this is sort of a view that I had. I don't know if I specifically mentioned this during committee, but we view what we're doing with this policy now as a foundation upon which we will build, but the regulation on top of that, an ongoing discussion. And it's also a policy which is informed by the many meetings that and sessions that a few of us attended. Also at workshops where we were able to learn from those who are also engaged in the same discussion and build in best practices from experts around the state and elsewhere. So again, it's a foundation. I think it will be, as it stands, you'll see it's robust, it's wide, it encompasses a tremendous amount of information, a tremendous amount of latitude again for the educators as well. But at the same time, will also provide the mandatory and educational informational component for parents and for our community to understand when AI will be used, how it would be used, how students are permitted and when they will be permitted to use it in the classroom for projects and for curricular activities. And also what cross-referencing those policies that already exist in the district with regard to inappropriate use, unethical use of AI and how that would be handled, whether through the code of conduct or other existing policy in the district. Any other comments from committee members?
As Mr. Mayor said, there was a lot of conversation about this policy in particular, and there were a few things that I think we've worked into this initial draft that I thought were really important that we add, things like outlining or addressing, not just appropriate use, but age appropriate use, considering that our district spans from pre-K through high school. I think that varies greatly how you might use it for a kindergarten classroom versus in the high school setting. Transparency around what we're sharing with parents, letting parents know that not just that it is being used, but how it may be used in the classroom. One request that I would make, my understanding is that I believe Ms. Gilfillan has some experience in these policies in other districts. If, if Mrs. Winters, Dr. Morton are comfortable with it, I would appreciate just your lens as somebody who's seen this in other districts. If we could make that happen before it moves to the action agenda, I would really appreciate that. I think it would help strengthen the policy. And I would ask the same of my board colleagues. We did a lot of work at it at the P&L level, but just please, if you take a deep dive on any of our policies, look at this one, because I think this is not just really critical at a really important time, but it's also one of the policies that is truly board driven. It's not just a Strauss Esme, template that we downloaded. So I want to be really intentional, and I really would like all of your feedback if possible between now and the action agenda.
I appreciate that comment. Another way, I look at this, district has gotten generally rave reviews on how we handled cell phone policy, and it's been used as somewhat of a template around the district, around the state. I don't see why this can't be the same. And that's not the goal. It's not what we're trying to do. We want to do this to get it right for our students, to get it right for our staff, and to give comfort to our parents also around data privacy with respect to the prompts and the input that our students are gonna place onto that. It's all part of this policy. But it sounds like a mammoth lift. I'm not going to say that it was, it's wasn't easy to get this far. But that doesn't mean that we won't be able to get through this, and we'd value obviously your input, and we should be able to get this through to a vote before the end of the year. Okay. Seeing no other comments. Oh, I'm sorry. I should say, seeing none in the direction that I was looking. If I were to turn this way, I would see Mrs. Sherfain.
Looking through, I understand that the policy that you're speaking about with AI is directed towards like use in the classroom and curricular, uses for AI. I'm curious if either there was discussion, or maybe we should have discussion on how AI also should correlate to what we have written on code of conduct as well. And is there any discussion around what that'll look like?
Short answer is yes. And code of conduct will be cross-referenced as one of perhaps several cross-reference policies that will be implicated in the event that there is a founded violation of the AI policy.
Thank you.
This time I have swiveled. Dr. Dreisen.
My question doesn't relate to the AI policy though, so I want to make sure if anyone has any questions on that before moving on, because C and I had an opportunity to review it ahead of you. But thank you for all the work there.
And thank you for bringing that up as well, because I failed to mention that C and I kicked it off, and we took the punt and went from there.
So I know it was only about, I think, 12 minutes. So I did the math. If A and I was 50 minutes. So I know there might not have been a lot of time spent on this, but I did bring it up in prior meetings. So I just do want to ask for a bit more clarification on 2422. Because again, my comments were, I guess I'm still just unclear. When I look at other districts, some districts have kept the title as comprehensive health and physical education. So I'm still a little unclear on the impetus for broadening the scope of this. I guess this really gets to like governance of policy for us, but to change this to statutory curricular requirements. And then if we do make that change though, just to be clear and on the record, like I support all of the content that's in here. They are NJSA statutes, so it's like not controversial. But the confusing thing to me is number 27 in it, which then says any other statutory administrative codes. And there are other NJSA 18A 35 codes that are other policies that we adopt in Cherry Hill, but they're not listed here. So it's more just a question of what we're choosing to include versus exclude. And that's unclear to me. Yeah.
Earlier in the day, I did give a heads up to Dr. Mahan, who I see is still online on our meeting. So I am going to turn the virtual microphone over to Dr. Mahan. So if you could help us with some of those details, that would be fantastic. Mrs. Stern, if you also wanted to weigh in. happy to do that, but Dr.
So
Mahan, if you're
Dr.
still there-
Dreisen, thank you for your question. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Mahan.
You're welcome. So actually, we received the update and the guidance for policy 2422 statutory curricular requirements in an update from Strauss Esme. It's in our policy alert number 235. And in that, this policy is indicated as mandatory. And part of the changes as direct from the policy update is that in the title, in addition, the title of Policy Guide 2422 has been revised to statutory curricular requirements, as many of the requirements listed in the policy are statutory and are referred to as statutory curricular requirements. This is alignment with the CUSAC indicators, and they are asking everyone to make these changes. So we did not choose to make this change. For the districts that you may have looked at, I'm not sure if they utilize Strauss Esme or if they are aware of the guidance, but this is a mandatory guidance and it is a mandatory update.
That's helpful. Thank you, Dr. Mahan. And so
You're
then,
welcome.
if we move forward with approving this to, well, the process, I know we're in second read just right now and then voting on it at a later date. But if there are other, to number 27, if there are other statutory administrative codes, I guess process-wise, is that something that we could revisit and add to this policy over time through P&L?
Yes, they would be added. And in specifically for item number 27, that was just signed into law. It's a bill A3871, and that bill requires that the New Jersey State Board of Education is to adopt the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, to include Latino and Hispanic history. It is to begin in the 26-27 school year for all students in kindergarten through grade 12. That instruction, as aligned with many of the other statutory requirements that you see in policy 2422, are to support the historical accuracy, cultural relevance, and contributions of these populations. So again, those are all bills and or laws that we are required to follow that we have put into the policy, and we will continue to include them in policy 2422. Typically with the policy alerts that we receive from Strauss Esme, they do provide us guidance in which policy these updates should be included.
Understood. Thank you. And yes, I'm tracking on the Latinos and Hispanics. That's clause 25. And understood it's another, again, not controversial. It's one of these NJSA policies. I'm talking about in 27, it just says any other statutory administrative codes. And I'm just pointing out to the board, we do have other NJSA 18A 35 things that are not included in this policy right now, as currently presented to us. But we can revisit that at a later time, I presume?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's how teamwork works. Thank you, Dr. Mahan. Are
You're
there
welcome.
any other questions about the P&L meeting? Okay, seeing none.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for a very productive board work session. We now move into the action agenda, where all the action is, as former board president Ovadia used to say all the time. So I will kick it off. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following: 17.1, approval of attendance at conference and workshops for the 25-26 school year. 17.2, approval of out-of-district student placement for the 25-26 school year. 17.3, approval of research projects. Do I have a second? Ms. Palmer, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, Mr. Schimpf, please open the voting on the CNI agenda.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Mr. Greenbaum, please move the BNF agenda.
Superintendent recommends, and I move the following. 18.1, approval of bill lists. 18.2, resolution for the rejection of proposals. 18.3, copy of resolution authorizing and approving certain purchases in excess of the bid threshold through New Jersey state contracts and/or purchasing system cooperatives. And 18.4, submission of comprehensive maintenance plan and M1. Do I have a second? Mr. Mayor, are there any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Schimpf, please open the voting.
Mr. Schimpf, I need to recuse myself on the second bill list from Jewish Federation of South Jersey to avoid a conflict of interest.
Mr. Schimpf. On bill list number 2, I need to abstain on the payments to Bancroft.
Mr. Schimpf, on 18.1, the fourth bill list, I have to recuse myself for payments to Beata.
And we're not done. Mr. Schimpf, also on 18.1, I have to recuse myself on invoice to ESS to avoid a conflict of interest.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Fain, can you please move the HR agenda this evening?
Sure. The superintendent recommends and I move the following: 19.1, termination of employment non-certificated; 19.2, appointments certificated; 19.3, appointments non-certificated; 19.4, assignment salary change certificated; 19.5, assignment salary change non-certificated; and 19.6, other compensation certificated. Do I have a second? Ms. Stern, any questions, comments? Seeing none, Mr. Schimpf, can you please open voting?
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, can you please move the P&L agenda?
Absolutely. The superintendent recommends that I move the following. Item 20.1, approval of harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigation decisions. Those were the ones the board heard on October the 28th of this year. Item 20.2, approval of the field trip. This would be to approve the Cherry Hill East students to attend National Convention and Competition for Journalism, 2 days. Do I have a second? Mrs. Sherfain, let the record reflect I looked to my right. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Schimpf, would you open the voting?
Mr. Schimpf, I need to abstain from 20.1 as I was not present for those discussions.
Mr. Schimpf, I am also abstaining from 20.1, also not present.
Mr. Schimpf, also not present for those discussions, 20.1.
Motion carries.
Excellent. There is nothing under governance this evening. We had our big bang on governance last week. Are there any board members with new business? Seeing none, moving on to old business. Mr. Schimpf and I are going to talk about NJDOE and the school funding reform outreach initiative that they have. Do you want to take the lead, Mr. Schimpf?
I can. So under old business, we have, or the DOE has provided an opportunity for members of the public, which obviously includes all of you, as well as the administrator sitting here at the table, to comment on essentially the School Funding Reform Act, or SFRA, the funding formula. I put a link in here for you to see or get to the survey. I also included, I went through and just kind of clicked through and did a quick printout so you guys could see all of the questions without navigating. You'll see that it's really a multiple choice type of survey with text boxes for additional comment. In addition to that, I just provided a report that was developed through my professional organization, New Jersey ASBO, which I thought provides some really good background on SFRA, its current challenges, and some recommendations that they're providing to the state. I think the discussion was more centered around how we want to respond to this, whether it be a coordinated effort that you know the district provides, the board also provides, other organizations that Dr. Morton included in his update as well. So really just gathering thoughts on how you want to approach. There is a due date for the survey for this Friday. The only other piece I would add is the survey itself is very, very technical in nature. I would say it's not extremely user friendly. I mean, you will require some knowledge certainly of the formula as it currently exists to really answer some of those questions. So kind of just looking for feedback on how we want to move forward.
And just to add to that, so the survey is there, but there's also an option to email a statement, comments directly to NJDOE. So I guess the question is, does each board member want to individually take the survey? Do we want to do a statement as a board, like we did last year when they were looking for SFRA feedback, like I did when I went to Trenton and I read a statement as the board president representing the voice of the board? I think whatever we do should be aligned with what district administration does. That way we're all singing the same song. So how, with the understanding that the deadline is Friday, how would you guys like to approach this going forward? Because I think this is a really important moment where we can be impactful in what the changes are to the school funding formula, anticipated changes. Ms. Palmer.
So I think it's essential that we as a board probably send a letter that would come from you or you and Adam as president, vice president. But I also think each of us are also parents in the district. We are also taxpayers. I would personally like to see a two-pronged approach where we send a letter on behalf of the board and then each of the 9 of us fills out that survey based off of the feedback that is in that letter so that we know that our response is cohesive, consistent, you know, as long as that's appropriate and there's no concerns from Ms. Gilfillan or administration, I think that's our best approach.
Ms. Fain.
I would say pretty much similar response to that. I would also include that writing a letter from the board would satisfy our board duties and responsibilities, but I think it's totally reasonable as us as individuals, parents, and taxpayers to have a personal perspective to input to. I would imagine, given that we're all doing this every year, it's probably going to be consistent. There was that survey, if we took it as a parent or taxpayer perspective and sitting here at the table. But my personal thought behind it is absolutely do both. And I think it's even reasonable that we're responding to our own personal thoughts on how all of this is via survey. But that letter absolutely from like a Board of Ed perspective, district perspective.
Mr. Schimpf, is the administration going to do individual surveys, a separate letter? Like, have you guys decided what your approach is? Because I think we should definitely be aligned if we're going to do this.
Sorry. I would probably ask Dr. Morton to jump in on that and to get his opinion on how district wants to move forward.
You caught me.
Sorry.
I was listening.
I tried to pause. I apologize. So the question is, we were talking back and forth. So if the BOE crafts a letter and submits to the SFRA outreach site, it sounds as if each of the board members wants to take the survey and submit their own personal response to that. Do we as an administration want to submit one response as a district to the survey, or do we want to, I guess, have an effort to have all administrators provide a response?
Survey can be individual, but I think in terms of any written language, it should be on behalf of the district. And you and I can collaborate on it, similar to what we've done in the past as well.
Mr.
So forgive me because I'm not you know, this isn't kind of just came up, but the PTA, are they eligible to participate? Because
So-
typically they sit at the table when we
Zone
testify.
PTA and fair funding have already been, as soon as the survey came out, we alerted Alana Yara's
Oh,
Zone
that was the
PTA.
email we got.
Fair funding,
Okay.
that's all,
It's-
so
it's all
that,
connecting.
that community
They're on
facing-
it.
Sorry,
On it.
that community facing piece is already out
It's on
there.
it, okay.
So Zone
Thank you.
PTA through the Fair Funding Committee is already handling the social media, the community facing piece and all of that stuff. We did get an email from a community member who teaches in another district who asked over the weekend how we were doing
Right.
that.
That was
right?
the email we got.
So that
right,
was the
okay.
response to
Thank
that.
you.
So the discussion here tonight is
Thank you to that community member.
yes. So the discussion here tonight is not about community members who are out there. Yes, please fill out the survey and tell Trenton Cherry Hill story. We need you to do that. The conversation here tonight is because we're on a, it has to be done by Friday. If myself and Mr. Greenbaum are going to work on some kind of a draft statement on behalf of the board, which then you guys will all want to read and approve and make sure that we're capturing the board voice. I want to make sure I have enough time to do that if that's what the board desires.
I'm a yes on that. And I agree that we should all individually do the survey if we can make the time, because the more input, these surveys are data, they're aggregated data. So I think our aggregated voices are important.
Dr. Dreisen.
Just a process clarification. Would we all do the survey? Would it make sense for you and Mr. Greenbaum to co-sign the district letter as the district with the board, or is it two separate letters?
In the past, we've done
separate.
separate but
Okay.
aligned. So when we testified at the hearings they had last, gosh, that was earlier this year, this January. It's been a long year, everybody. When we testified in January, Dr. Morton and I both testified aligned, but we spoke from the board voice as the ones who approve the budget every year, and also incorporating the taxpayer voice with the burden and the benefit of the bond referendum on our community and what that looks like when we're forced to increase taxes to pay for things year over year. So I think Adam and I, Mr. Greenbaum and I will work on something, and I can resend to you guys, actually sent to Mr. Schimpf because he wasn't here earlier in the year, some of the pieces that we've done in the past, which have board voice, so you can see what we've done in the past, and then we'll craft something new for this. And then you will all review, give me feedback so that I can edit and update it. And then we'll make sure that we coordinate with Dr. Morton as well. That way we make sure that we're all singing the same song, but from different perspectives. Does that make sense? I just gave myself another homework assignment, you guys. Anything? All right. Thank you guys so much for that discussion. It was important. Anything else in old business? Ms. Sherfain.
Just a friendly reminder that we have 3 opportunities coming up for the community to participate in our elementary rebalancing discussions. The first, which I can't believe I'm about to say this, is this Thursday. That went really fast. This Thursday, 7 p.m. at Cherry Hill East, which I actually have a question. Will it be, I'm assuming, in the auditorium for that? No?
It'll actually be in a cafeteria.
Cafeteria for that one. Also Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, a week from today at Cherry Hill West, also 7 p.m. That's November 18th in the auditorium. And then Thursday, November 20th would be 7 p.m. and that will be virtual. And that link can be found. Will that be emailed?
On the website.
On the website. That link will be very clearly shown on the website for anybody interested to attend virtually. If you really love talking about this, you can come to all 3. But know that if you come to just one of them, you will be heard, and 4 of the board members will be there to participate in the discussion, hear what the community has to say, and take note of all of your input.
One quick point of clarification. Can you add on the virtual session? I think there was an interesting question over the weekend memo about inclusivity, that people can join the virtual one if they're different languages. And
oh, yes, sure. So that is actually, I think it's 7. What was the total number of languages that the Zoom can be viewed in that you said? I know we have 71 different languages in the district. I don't know if you remember. I mean, you gave us a nice list of all of the, it was probably like 30 different languages that Zoom has to offer. So thank you for that, Dr. Dreisen. For anybody in the community that's listening now, or for any of you that are here, you can tell all your friends. be, what is it, 46? Oh, even more than I thought, 46 different languages. So if there are anybody in the district that might not come in person for, there is likely not going to be some sort of access to interpretation and stuff like that. So the virtual option is a good option for any community member that would need interpreter services. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I can't believe it's Thursday either. Any other old business this evening? Seeing none. We are finally at second public comment, and I want to thank our intrepid community members out in the audience who have been sitting here this evening, because I know it was a really long meeting. We didn't mean to do that to you. It just happened to be a really packed meeting. So thank you all for hanging in there to second public comment. We really appreciate it. And I mean that sincerely. So public comment is an opportunity for members of the community to provide input to the Board of Education on educational issues. The board welcomes diverse opinions on relevant matters. However, statements that are abusive, obscene, or which demean or are defamatory to any individual or group of individuals will not be tolerated. Such comments are disruptive to the orderly operation of this meeting. Speakers wishing to provide the board with information which is not relevant to the district operations may communicate directly with the superintendent and the board president via email or other alternative means. So I'm going to open second public comment. Similar to first public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak and the time will be on the screen. We start in the room by custom. Somebody already knew the rules. You can approach the podium at your leisure. Give us your, he's been here before. Never been here before. You can approach the podium. You can give us your name and your municipality, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer on the screen will indicate. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sorry for being so bold and just coming right up.
Name and municipality.
My name is Michael Nussbaum. I'm here tonight as both a parent of a child with special needs in Cherry Hill and a high school teacher in another district. I've spent years in classrooms and IEP meetings like the ones we hold here, and I know this: when collaboration replaces defensiveness, children thrive. Unfortunately, many parents I've spoken with in Cherry Hill describes their experience as transactional, not collaborative. Too often, when a parent raises a concern, the answer is, if you don't like it, go to due process. That response doesn't build partnerships, it builds walls. It isolates families, wastes time and diverts energy from students we're all supposed to serve. At the last board meeting, I submitted a formal action request for an independent audit of the special education department modeled after Haddonfield's 2019 special education audit. I provided printed materials to each board member and every director at the side table, yet I received no written acknowledgement or response. So tonight I'm asking again, please confirm that my request was received, reviewed, and considered. Whether the answer is yes, no, or pending, parents deserve a response. I've heard the district's priorities to support every child's growth, to build belonging, and to ensure staff excellence. Those are noble goals, but to live up to them, we must be reflective. A person or a district that can slap its own hand when necessary is the smartest kind of person, because that takes humility. It takes courage to say, we can do better, and then to actually do it. Cherry Hill needs that kind of courage, to look inward, to listen, and to learn. When a general education teacher tells my son is not under her jurisdiction, that is not inclusion. That's avoidance. Inclusion has been a law since 1975 under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's not a favor, it's a civil right. Every teacher has a student who has a student in a classroom shares a responsibility for that student's success. I tried to be part of this solution. I reached out to the New Jersey Inclusion Project, whose director offered to provide the first professional learning session on inclusion free of charge. I shared the information with the district and was told it would be distributed. I truly hope it was, because our teachers want tools and support to succeed. While the district proudly showcases its bond projects, which are exciting and needed, let's remember, new buildings alone don't create equity. True progress comes with culture inside those buildings, a culture of reflection, collaboration, and compassion for each child. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to work with you to help Cherry Hill live up to its promises it already has made. Let's be that kind of district that has humility to reflect and the wisdom to address and that includes every child. Please respond to my request.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you, Mr. Nussbaum. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Going online, the first person online is Ken Lee. It's your turn. Please unmute. Give us your name and municipality. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is Ken Lee again. I live in Cherry Hill in the area of Clara Barton, Carusi, and Cherry Hill West. I have about 2 questions coming in, and it's in regards to the academic performance that was displayed earlier that showed the overall improvement of Cherry Hill. First question I have is, what is the percentage of kids transitioning from a private school to Cherry Hill Public School District? The reason I ask this question is my niece, Victoria, who unfortunately is no longer here, was here on an F1 visa, and unfortunately, because of Cherry Hill's policies, she was not allowed to attend the public schools and had to go to Resurrection Catholic School that's located on Kings Highway. From our experiences, I have never experienced anything so abhorrent and absolutely substandard in terms of education. There were teachers that were at that school that didn't even have teaching certificates of eligibility that allowed them to teach at a public school, and even showed that they even had the credentials to teach at a public school. Not to mention that one of the teachers, I believe one of their music teachers, did not even have a bachelor's degree, which is extremely alarming. So I'd like to see some of the data set about the kids that are transitioning from a private school to Cherry Hill Public School District, only because those kids are coming from an education that what I see is extremely subpar to an education level that will for sure help them, but also from an education level that was much lower than the public schools in New Jersey, let alone Cherry Hill. The second question is it's in pertaining to the chronic absenteeism. I'd like to know if there's any action that would penalize parents of kids with chronic absenteeism. And that's only because one of the possible reasons for chronic absenteeism is possibly due to the lack of care from parents itself. I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but I'd definitely like to know the answers to those 2 questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in and thank you for your comment. Going back to the room, is there anyone who would like to make second public comment? Please come to the microphone. Please give us your name and municipality.
Matthew Bryn, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. All right. I've been a resident of Cherry Hill for 12 years, and I'm also speaking on behalf of my wife tonight, Melissa Bryn, who is a librarian at the Cherry Hill Public Library and a Cherry Hill resident for 30 years. Our daughter, Penny Bryn, is a 5th grader at Horace Mann Elementary. And I'm here tonight to show my support for both Cherry Hill School's media specialists and the Cherry Hill School District at large. First, we want to offer praise to Bethany Lawless, Horace Mann Elementary's librarian and tag teacher. She has nurtured Penny's curious spirit over the last few years, guided her exploration of our world, and provided materials that inspired some of our deepest and most profound family conversations. Most recently, the library had a book display of frequently challenged and banned books, such as A Light in the Attic by Shel Silverstein, The Witches by Roald Dahl, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. She noticed this display and became really interested in that topic. It sparked a conversation at home about censorship and gave us a new way to connect over books as a family. It also encouraged her to step outside of her normal reading habits and try reading poetry and short stories for the first time. We were grateful and impressed by her librarian for creating that display, and so proud that we're part of a school district where media specialists are trusted with those conversations and those displays. So when we heard, and Dr. Morton, you addressed this earlier, when we heard that a new procedure was being discussed to keep lists of books with quote unquote sensitive topics, keep records of which children were checking out such books, and would require a permission slip to check out those books, it really shocked us. One of the reasons we really love this school district is its commitment to freedom to read and its written policies on access to materials. Specifically, we support these policies approved by this board in 2016. Number one, to provide materials on opposing sides of controversial issues so that students may develop the practice of critical reading and thinking. And number two, to place principle above personal opinion and reason above prejudice in the selection of materials in order to assure a comprehensive collection appropriate for the users of the library. These are sound policies, and the board was right to implement them in 2016. The procedure that was being discussed, and I'm glad to hear was shelved, feels like a step back for a district as forward-thinking as this one. I know it is still in talks and it's been shelved, but should a policy like that or a procedure like that be reintroduced, I humbly ask this Board of Education to guide the administration away from that procedure, as I don't think it represents what is exceptional about our schools. I trust the expertise of our school media specialists and the education that they've provided themselves, and I support you all, the Board of Education, in ensuring that they have the resources and protection they need to perform their job to the best of their ability. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Going back to the line, it's a caller with a phone number ending in 788. It's your turn. Please unmute and give us your name and municipality.
My name is Jeff Pottos. I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Two things. An article to read on School Finance 101, March 14th, 2014. What really matters, equitable and adequate funding. School Finance 101. What really matters, equitable and adequate funding. Please read what Mark said on it, and you could read what I wrote on it. My name is Jeff. That was over 10 years ago, and I've been following SFRA for a good 20 years. A good 20 years. I understand the problem. I've told people in the school, on the school board and the school district, the problem. I told our township that they need to help out. In fact, I did that as early as this week. I told them to do it. It wasn't done. You want to talk to me? You can talk to me. But I've sent plenty of things. And go read that article, all right? We've been cheated for actually, even before that, since about 1989, all of which I've said, and I've given actual numbers, all right? And I took that survey. And the survey, you have to be very, very careful about it because I understand what they're trying to do. Our problem is the wealth equalization formula, to be honest with you, and we are losing all our wealth equalization. It has to do with special education because 2/3 of our calculated census budget of special ed aid is wealth equalized, and a number of other things. And I've known this for over 20 years. I may have been the first person to complain about it because, unfortunately, I called our representative, our assemblyman, about it. Within about 3 months when it came out, I knew we were being cheated. So, yeah, talk to me, but you won't because John Trumbull wrote about it from Special Ed PTA, wrote about it in 2010, spoke in front of a legislative committee about it. I could send you that too. You have it. About an article by Dr. Ian Rubins, a book written by him. This is from, and someone did a review of it, Sandra L. Gilman, Dr. Sandra L. Gilman, Distinguished Professor of Liberal Arts and Sciences and Professor of Psychiatry, Emory University, and author of Jewish Self-Hatred. Dr. Rubins, The Jewish Struggle in the 21st Century, Conflict, Positionality, and Multiculturalism reflects on the increasing sense of marginality among American Jews, however defined, as part of renewed focus on radical pedagogy in the schools and higher education. The social reality of Jews in secular culture seems to have moved from the historically defined perpetual victim to positions of power, at least within a radical pedagogy that renders them white. Rubin's first-rate study illuminates both the contentious function of race as a fixed category as well as the question of the attribution of power to groups that have been traditionally and continue to be marginalized.
Dr. Potowitz, thank you for your comment. Going back to the room, is there anyone else who would like to make second public comment tonight? Please approach the podium, give us your name and municipality.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Townsend and I live in Cherry Hill. I am a parent of a student in Cherry Hill Public Schools. I am also an educator, a speech therapist in a public school, and so access to information in schools is important to me personally and professionally. I was alarmed when I saw the note from Dr. Morton about the library memo regarding possibly instating a permission slip to take out books from the school libraries, which is very adjacent to banning books. But I was very happy to see Dr. Morton assure the community that Cherry Hill does not have a book ban or permission slip policy at this time. And again, you stated this tonight. However, I would like to make a comment regarding this topic, as I would like to ensure Cherry Hill does not consider instating any policies that would restrict student access to books, enjoyment, and information. Having access to a variety of books is extremely important. Reading about differing perspectives and our own life experiences helps build empathy and community, which is something the Cherry Hill community strives for. Books also provide representation to a variety of communities. When you read about a character that matches you in a book, it is a feeling of being seen, and our students deserve and need to be seen. Finally, instating policies that remove access to books limits learning, and limiting learning in Cherry Hill schools would not result in our highly rated school district, as highlighted earlier with the NJSLA testing results. We are a diverse community, and so our district policy should be aligned with that diversity and integrity. I implore the district to continue their stance in not instating any policies that would restrict access to books like permission slips or literal bans. Thank you for listening to and supporting our community.
Thank you for your comment. Going online, the next caller is Jill Roth-Gutman. It's your turn. Please unmute. Give us your name and municipality.
Hi, Jill Roth Gutman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, congratulations to the re-elected and newly elected members of the board. I know Dr. Morton wrote a letter and address this evening about the sensitive book topic and not banning books. But as a child welfare attorney for nearly 20 years, I'm deeply concerned about an ongoing discussion requiring parental permission slips to check out sensitive library materials. While it sounds like parental involvement in practice, it harms the very children most in need of our school support. I've represented foster youth, children who reside at foster homes, shelters, group homes, or with relatives, all who might not have a parent available to sign a permission slip. This means a DCP&P caseworker, foster parent, or parent with an open abuse and neglect litigation would have to sign off. Now I work with children in high conflict custody cases, where even asking for one parent's signature could spark another round of conflict, emotional harm, or even more litigation. A policy like this could stall or block access to books. It creates unnecessary barriers, mailing forms, tracking down absent parents, and delaying learning. And more importantly, it threatens students' health and safety. Students dealing with trauma, mental health issues, grief, divorce, or identity questions often turn to books when they cannot talk to adults. Forcing permission means those same kids may stop seeking help or stop reading altogether. A potential policy creating a two-tier education system, one where kids whose parents are open-minded get access, kids whose parents are strict or uninvolved don't, and the library stops being a place for all students. Our district's diversity is one of its greatest strengths. Sensitive content often means books about race, gender, religion, or identity, stories that reflect real students' lives. Restricting them can unintentionally discriminate against students who most need to see themselves represented. Books build empathy, resilience, and understanding. They help children heal and grow. Please don't make them ask for permission to learn. I'm not there in person, but I had a shirt on today that says readers are leaders. And then since I have a little bit more time, I would like to also address the concern with the middle school split class model surrounding the lunch periods affecting core subjects. Students have to stop mid-lesson. It takes time to refocus them. Those further from the cafeteria lose more time because they're missing an extra few minutes a day compared to students closer to the cafeteria. That amount of time adds up. So let's say you miss 3 minutes of class each
Ms.
day.
Roth-Gutman, I'm sorry, you're out of time. Thank you so much. If you have more to say, please feel free to email us. I'd be happy to hear from you. Going back to the room, is there anybody else who would like to make second public comment? There are a lot of previous board contenders in the audience this evening. I do appreciate seeing that. And librarians. It's a great combination. It's your turn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy DeCampley. My daughter goes to Wrestle Night where she is thriving. Thinks that Mr. Park is a rock star. So we're very happy there. Dr. Morton, thank you very much for addressing our concerns earlier today. We have full faith in the board and administration. We know that you are not trying to step on the intellectual freedom of the students or the staff here. We really just, actually, I should say, I am currently a public librarian serving teens. I was previously a high school librarian. I am also a professional reviewer of teen literature for Kirkus and for School Library Journal. So this is why this is important to me. We want to make sure that while you aren't trying to censor books, we don't want any unintentional barriers between kids and books. And that is sometimes what can happen when we have policies like this. Your media specialists are amazing professionals. They have policies to help them select books, and we want to make sure that they are given the time and resources to do that. So thank you for addressing that today.
Thank you for your comment. Going online, the next person, it says Sue Drew. It's your turn. Please unmute, give us your full name and municipality. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Susan Druckenbrode. I'm in Cherry Hill. So I'm calling also about the library and the book issue, perhaps book ban. I was very shocked to read in the Philadelphia Inquirer the memo from Ms. Staffen. It's quite detailed memo. So, you know, I think there was a level of thought that went into how this proposal to regulate how the kids would take out books and how that would be tracked. It's just very concerning. You know, the state legislature, they did pass the Freedom to Read bill. And as a parent and as a taxpayer, I was happy about that legislation and really thought, okay, I don't have to worry about this. But then, you know, I read about this in the Inquirer and I read about it in other places and people are talking about it. So you know, I did hear Dr. Morton earlier sort of reassure that we are not banning books in Cherry Hill. But again, the level of detail in that memo was shocking. So those are my comments. I'm glad that Dr. Morton kind of explained that, but it is still perplexing about that memo. But thank you.
Thank you for calling in and for your comment. Going back to the room, is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Please approach the microphone, give us your name and municipality.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darby Malvey. I live here in Cherry Hill. I want to thank the board and everybody for your time. I know it's late. I know you've heard a lot about this library policy and you're going to hear a little bit more. I'm so sorry. In the interest of full disclosure, I am a certified school media specialist, but I've never worked in this district. And I'm really active in a lot of statewide professional organizations. Dr. Morton, I was glad to hear what you said earlier, and I'm glad that I don't have to talk tonight about the New Jersey Freedom to Read Act or the New Jersey Law Against Discrimination in Places of Public Accommodation or the many court cases, but I could and I will if I have to, so I will come back. Don't tempt me. Today, I want to talk about my own experience. I'm lucky enough to have 2 students here in elementary school in Cherry Hill at Johnson. And given my profession, they are no strangers to the library, right? But they come home on library day, like so proud and so excited to show me their library book that they picked out with the help of their school librarian. And it's really clear when they do that, that's like a very unique and valuable moment for them. And why is that, right? So my kids and all the students in the district are really lucky to have access not only to school libraries, but also to certified media specialists. And we know that's not the case for a lot of our major neighboring districts. And we know that's something that traditionally we've been very proud of in this community. But the value in having media specialists is not just in having them. That's not enough, right? The value is in trusting them, respecting them, and valuing their expertise, experience, and training. The reason my kids are so proud when they come home and so excited about the books they picked is because their school librarian works diligently, makes use of her specialized training in material selection, and then works hard to build connections with her students and build up a relationship that allows them to do things that young people rarely get to do. Things like make their own choices, explore their own interests, navigate their own needs and their own curiosity. And they do all of that while they're learning about building a relationship with a safe, trusted adult who has their needs and interests at heart. But my kids and their classmates would be much worse off, and their education would be that much poorer, and their experiences as students would be that much diminished if the priority and the energy and the focus of our media specialists shifts from providing materials that meet the needs and interests of our students to providing materials that meet some other criteria, right? I'm really happy to hear that the district is committing to not engaging in policies of outright censorship. But the fact remains that the memo was written and distributed, which means many of the folks in the community and in the profession are very concerned that there are still processes could be coming that complicate access to materials, stigmatize the needs and interests of students, or have potential other unintended consequences. I want to close out my time by just saying thank you to our media specialists. My family and many families value you. We thank you, we support you, and we will be watching.
Thank you for your comment.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Going back online, the next caller's name is Jessica. Jessica, it's your turn. Please unmute, give us your name and municipality.
Hi, can you hear me?
We
My name
can.
is Jessica. Okay, my name is Jessica Santiago. I'm from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My first concern is a health and safety question regarding the building work and abatement currently taking place. I understand the district is conducting abatement in portions of the building. My concern is about how the air is being handled during this process. Since the school has a centralized ventilation system that pushes air throughout the building, how is the air being contained so that fibers, dust, or contaminants from the abatement area do not circulate to classroom and shared spaces? Like what containment measures are in place to isolate the abatement area, whether negative air pressure systems are being used to prevent airflow from the work zone, whether there's been independent air quality testing, and if so, whether the results are shared publicly, how frequently HVAC filters are being changed during this work, and whether higher grade filters like MERV 13 or better are being used, who's overseeing environmental compliance, for example, an industrial hygienist, environmental firm, and how families can review the documentation. My priority is making sure that environment remains safe for students and staff throughout construction. So I'm just requesting clear communication and transparency around the safety protocols and testing data. My other concern is academic. I understand that the kids have IXL access across for math, which is very helpful. However, it seems that the full IXL for science, ELA, and foreign language is not accessible. Can you clarify whether the district has licenses for those sections? Because there's a section there that says like assessment preparation, so that might be helpful. For foreign language learning, speaking, and listening practice, what audio-based resources are currently provided for French and Spanish to support listening and speaking skills? My daughter did go to the library, but she wasn't able to find any foreign language support in her school library. Are there plans to supplement instruction with pronunciation practice tools, conversation labs, or digital platforms that allow students to hear and practice spoken language regularly? For science and ELA, do students have no, that's okay. For financial literacy, I wanted to ask about adding financial literacy and practical math skills into the curriculum, like budgeting, credit savings, taxes, cost of living understanding. And then in regards to the books, I think it's about the whole banning. I just wanted to say, like, I don't want my child reading a book that talks about who's having relationships with who, like she's having a relationship with him and all this other stuff. Books can if the books include immorality, then it doesn't need to be included. Our kids could be reading 1,000 other books, including coping strategies, how to deal with anxiety and depression, personality types, the 5 love languages, self-help books, how to influence, how to have friends and influence people, how to be financially literate. So there's a lot of other social, emotional books out there besides fiction that is inappropriate. And then
Ms.
my
Santiago,
last,
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you so much.
thank
If you have more that you would like to add, you feel free to email us. We appreciate it. Going back to the room, is there anyone else who would like to make second public comment tonight? Please approach the microphone.
Rick Short, Cherry Hill. Ms. Santiago's comments were incredible, incredibly smart, especially the ones about the air quality. Excellent point, Ms. Santiago. Much respect for you. Here we go, folks. It's the circus show from an inner memo. What a circus show. I mean, this goes right along with the famed ragtime show with the N-word. It falls right in with the great media campaign that this district runs. And let's not forget the 1776 controversy. Yes, another media circus. And then we had the lunch scandal. You know, you may not agree what I say, but I want to tell you the worst moment in Cherry Hill manipulation of children. This is horrible to know how this school district manipulates the media for their own self-fame. Who remembers Seussical? Yes, Seussical. When the students overwhelmingly voted to have Legally Blonde, you guys had to make a point that you had to teach that Seussical had racist monkeys. It was like a 51-6 vote. I'll check. I'll come back on that vote. You, the district of Cherry Hill, should be ashamed of yourself to create this fiasco that never existed. It is truly amazing how you guys manipulate the media for fame. Amazing. But let's talk more about how pathetic it is what you did as a number race baiting thing with Seussical. Again, there was a democracy vote done at a middle school play, and it was overwhelmingly for Legally Blonde. But you guys had to input your race baiting education into it. You, district, you're pathetic. Pathetic, pathetic. Thank you.
Going back to the line, I don't see anybody online. Going back to the room, is there anybody else who would like to make second public comment this evening? Don't see anybody approaching the microphone. Going back to the line, I don't see anybody online, and I would like to close second public comment. Before we move on from second public comment, I just want to be really clear that there has been no change in board policy. There is no change in board policy under consideration. Board policies align with all current state laws, including the Freedom to Read Act. Dr. Morton, superintendent comments.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your comments this evening. I really appreciate the candid comments and your support of our media specialists. Our media specialists are incredible. They do a fantastic job. And as I mentioned earlier, it was such a pleasure to meet with them and to hear the thoughts and the process and the intentional thought that had gone into what was laid out. Just moving forward, the high school level first marking period closes today, actually. So we are already one marking period down. I encourage all families to ensure that students are making sufficient progress. They have gotten off to a great start. And typically what we see in the second marking period, kids start the school year off with full steam and they're ready to go. And then it starts to the energy starts to wane. So we want to continue that energy and moving forward into the second marking period as well. Mr. Fain, thank you so much for your comments about elementary enrollment balancing process and the meetings that will start on Thursday. We are absolutely looking forward to that. We'll also have a complimentary survey that we'll be sending out to the community to allow for those who are unable to attend to provide us with feedback as well about the process. Final note, this evening while I was here, I received a very positive message from Mr. Burrell, our athletic director. Our high school East boys soccer team went into overtime today against Eastern Regional High School, and they pulled it out 2-1. They will be hosting the Group 4 sectional final on Friday at 6 p.m. Congratulations to Coach Melagrano and the East Young men. And he just texted me this evening. He said the job's not done. We're ready to get it done on Friday. So we're competitive around here. We're looking forward to the East boys soccer team bringing home a sectional title. With that, I'll say, have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Dr. Braddock, all those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned.